Hey everybody, I was almost late for my own stream because, and Wes would laugh if he's in here or if he was in here, because Brandon did have an accident in the floor right before I was ready to go on here. Bless his heart, he can't help it. But I had to make sure that got cleaned up before I came back here. So, uh, let's see. Hey, Texas. Hey, Blissful. Hey, Menelect. And I see Mr. TJ Dusa is waiting in the wings there. I'm getting ready to add him. And we're going to talk about the last half of the episodes from season 3 of Tales from the Dark Side. And then we'll be moving on to, I believe we're going to be moving on to the final season after that. I can see TJ shaking his head yes. So I thought there were only 4 seasons. Well, as a kid, it seemed like there were a lot more. It seemed like it went on a lot longer. So when I got older and the sets came out, I was like, really? There were only, 4 seasons? But the same was, I thought the same about Bosom Buddies when I was a kid. The Bosom Buddies show seemed like it was a lot longer, and I loved that show. But a lot of people said after the first season, when they stopped dressing in drag, because everybody knew that they were guys and they could still live in the apartment, then kind of, I guess the mystique or more of the comedy stuff was gone because they didn't have to hide the fact that they were guys to live in this apartment building. So anyway, um, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing anything tomorrow night. Steve says that I never rest. And I said, well, it doesn't take much uh, to sit back there at my desk and talk about movies or talk about television shows. I think the other stuff that I have to do every day just wears me out. It's not doing the streams, but he thinks I need to, I guess take a break from them and not do them almost every night of the week. Dirk's asking, hey, Dana, where can we find all these tales from the dark sides? Um, well, you could try Amazon. I know the set that TJ has, I think, has them all in one thing. But when I originally bought mine, they came in these little separate sets. Um, so as far as quality, I think the quality is going to be about the same. Whether you buy that set that has all of them in one, or you buy these, you happen to find these separate sets that came out earlier. I think as far as quality, it's not really going to matter. Um, I mean, the artwork might be a little bit better on these separate things, but it's not, again, it's not that much difference. So, um, I would say probably whichever one you can find. I'm not sure that you would be able to find these original releases unless you went on eBay or something, and how people get crazy with what they think stuff is worth. Um, but anyway, and also a little reminder, and I have to remind myself too, um, of what the watch along is going to be for Saturday. I'm still planning on doing it, um, even though I am going to the Lexington Comic Con this Saturday, because as far as I know, Sam Raimi's still supposed to be there, and I want to get a poster signed. So I was going to get a photo op, and then I thought, nah, I'll just get a poster signed. So I got not an original one sheet, but I got a Evil Dead poster that's theater size with that original artwork for the Evil Dead on it. And but Steve's all kind of wound up because he's like, you better look into this, Dana, and see when this opens and all that stuff. Because he said, I don't want to stay there all day while you're waiting in line all day long to get Sam Raimi's autograph. And I said, well, I looked and they're not offering autograph tickets for Sam Raimi. They're offering autograph tickets for Kevin Smith, who's also going to be there. But I said, I see nothing about autograph tickets for Sam Raimi. So I'm just assuming it's going to be a free for all. People that get there first and get in there first, which is probably going to be the VIPs that get in there before anybody else. Those people that paid the extra bucks, which I didn't. I paid enough for the tickets. I think the tickets for Saturday were $60 a piece. So I definitely was not going to get VIP tickets. But anyway, so I don't know what it's going to be like. It might be a total shit show when I get there, and I may very well be waiting in line all day to get his autograph. The reason I didn't pick Sunday, which is a slower day, is because Steve never likes to go to conventions on Sundays. We always go on Saturdays because he doesn't want to spend his last day before he has to go back into work at a convention. Durkee said I wouldn't mind going back through memory lane. I like Dirk's answer to TJ's question about how everybody's week's going so far. Because Dirk says, pretty good, TJ, can't complain, and wouldn't do a bit of good if I did. TJ says he complains in silence, unless I'm in my car yelling at traffic. Oh, gosh. Talking about yelling at traffic. Steve yells at traffic all the time and beats his hands on the steering wheel, calls everybody around him every name in the book. So, yeah. Traffic is a pain, but I think some people handle it better than others. So anyway, the 25th, which is this Saturday, I am planning on doing Bad Dreams. So everybody can feel free to join me for that, and also join me live on the stream if you want to participate live in the watch along. So we got all that coming up. Plus next Monday is the continuation of the Alfred Hitchcock stream with me and Kelly, and anybody else that wants to join in, of course. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and add TJ. Hey, TJ.
How's it going?
Good. A little tired, but other than that, I'm good. And TJ has once again got a Tales from the Darkside shirt on, so he's ready to go.
I don't have a Dead Pit shirt to wear today, but you should be wearing them. But anyway.
I did wear the green Dead Pit shirt, one of the older style ones. Ooh, that's cool, TJ, by the way.
Okay.
But I did wear it on the Leprechaun watch along. So Wes told me to make sure I wore green or Aaron would pinch me. So
Through the computer?
I guess. But I was going to wear green anyway. But I thought, well, yeah, I'll just pull out that green Dead Pit shirt, and then that'll cover both things. It'll cover for St. Patrick's Day, and it'll also cover, that way Wes can't say that I don't wear Dead Pit shirts on any streams. So anyway, if TJ's ready, we'll go ahead and get started with the first episode we're going to talk about tonight, which I believe TJ said is one of his favorites.
Yeah, I just rewatched it today, and I was like, "Oh, this is good."
It is a good episode, and that is, of course, Miss Medusa. So I'm going to let TJ go ahead and get started talking about it, especially since it's his favorite or one of his favorites.
So it's a late night, and this robber robs a department store. It looks like more like a like one of those small tiny stores. It's like a I don't know. It looks more like a warehouse, but it's a small type of look. It's looking like a room than an actual store, but like it has like the big plot point is there's a window which comes to play later on in the movie, or it's sort of yeah. But anyway, this robber's robbing the place, and he comes eye to eye contact with this mannequin, and he turns into a mannequin, and then she becomes real. It's a very mannequin on the move type of terrible sequel to the okay original movie Mannequin. Anyway, she comes to life. All she has on is a big fur coat and shoes. Yes, she ain't wearing anything else under that because she's a mannequin. So she grabs a pair of sunglasses from the rack of sunglasses and puts them on, leaves. She comes across this, looks like it's like a New York setting. So she comes across this guy in the subway playing the saxophone. And they strike up a friendship pretty fast. But they're both kind of quirky people, so it kind of works for this. And she has amnesia, according to her. And he keeps trying to ask her questions. His name's Jimmy James, by the way. Sounds southern to me. Jimmy James. Oh, Jimmy James. Are you baling your hay today, Jimmy James? Anyway. So they start, like I said, they start becoming friends and learning about each other. And he's like, trying to figure out, he's trying to ask her questions, and she's like, I don't remember things. It's funny, this is actually the last one I watched today, which is like, I think I would have watched them in order, and then I would have wrote it down in order, but I didn't do that. Let's see. No.
Well, at least you've got notes, though.
Yeah. And as you can see, I easily get lost with notes. Imagine me without notes. So he asks things like where she's from, and she says the Mediterranean, which is a weird answer. And he's like, "Well, what's your name?" And she's like, "I don't remember." And he sort of writes a little musical piece for her, and he's like, what should I call you? Amnesia? And she's like, no, I don't like that name. That sounds scary. And he goes, well, I should name that piece of music I just made, which is kind of a cool little, he's serenading her, I guess, with They try to do a love story within a 30-minute episode of a TV show. And I think it works for the most part. People would be like, oh, that's not enough time. But like, if you really look at a movie, like how much time in a 90-minute movie do people really connect in a situation like that? So I think it kind of works out of that. And the actors are pretty good, I think, with what they're doing. She's very, I won't get into the name. Well, so she's trying to remember things. So he's like, well, what does your name sound like? And he's going, because he's a musician, obviously he knows different sounds or whatever. So he's going through different words and sounds. And he's like, Jusa and Usa. I was like, Usa. Sounds like something like Usa. And then they come with Dusa for some reason. And then, well, what do we call you for your first name? And he's like, me, mom, May. I like May. And she's like, Medusa. That sounds familiar. And he goes, that sounds like Medusa, the weird god. And she goes, well, what makes her weird? Well, when she looks at people, her eyes, they turn to stone. And she's immediately, she's not like that, but yeah, one of those stingers where it's like, oh, well, duh. Like she looks like she remembers because she talks about how she's talking about he's trying to get her to remember stuff, and she's like, well, how far back can you remember? And she's like, pretty far, because they bring up the whole Greek god thing. So obviously she's been around. If she is Medusa, she's been around for centuries at least. And he's like, well, tell me as far back as you remember. She starts talking about something like very like with people with explosions and people dying all over the place, and then I'm like, first of all, I'm trying to figure out what she's referring to, which is, but it's very, it fits with the aloofness and not really know what's going on with her exactly. I mean, we're assuming throughout from the story who she is really. So they sort of really fall for each other, and she removes her glasses, and he looks at her, and she's like, "Oh, good, my curse is over." I guess she thinks she fell in love with her, and her curse is over, and she's not going to turn people into mannequins anymore. And then she finds out he's blind, and she gets a little upset, and she's like, "Throw figures," and she's like getting mad at him, and he's like, "What did I do?" And she's like, "I'm not sorry. I didn't mean to get mad at you." And she had broken her sunglasses and thrown them away. So she's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to get." They basically decide they're gonna go. I don't know. They're gonna go off together, and he's a subway musician, and she's a thousands-year-old goddess. I don't know where they're gonna get money to rent an apartment in New York or whatever. I don't know. And then the rest of it, there's a twist at the end. So I'll kind of end it there. Would you like to take over?
All right. Well, TJ did such a wonderful job of explaining this story that I don't have any holes really to fill in. I like this episode too. I don't know exactly how far up on the list it would be for me, but I figure it's pretty far up on the list for TJ. But it's a nicely paced episode. Some of the episodes that we've talked about that haven't been so hot have seemed like they've went on a lot longer. I guess because they maybe didn't do the pacing well, but this one seems like the pacing is pretty spot on, and I like the characters in it. They don't, even though if she's Medusa, she doesn't seem all out evil. So I like that. She seemed like more of a regular person that was just trying to deal with these issues that she was going through. And then of course the musician is blind, so he's got his own stuff that so they, if you take that whole Medusa element out, they pretty much seem like regular people that just happen by chance to meet up with each other. And that is kind of, the way a lot of people end up getting in relationships. And I was looking at the chat as TJ was talking about the episode, and Dirk says, hell, me and my wife it was love at first sight. When you know, you know. And my parents always said the same thing. It was love at first sight for them. Is, like those things where you see somebody from afar and at that moment that they're supposed to be your soulmate, or they are your soulmate. And I know some people laugh at that and they think, no, there's no such thing as that kind of stuff. But I think some of those people have never really been in love. They may have thought they were in love, but they weren't. And if they were, then they would totally understand, just like what Dirk said. Texas says he knew he was in love with Blissful the first time they talked on the phone. So again, that's kind of like love at first sight, only it's love at first speak, or whatever you want. Love at first phone call or whatever. And Dirk says, yeah, man, it's just how it happens. And, I, not to get mushy gushy and all that stuff, but since we're talking about a little bit about relationships, I get aggravated with Steve and stuff, but when we started making a connection, I felt like we made a connection with each other before we even started dating, at the point where we were still in the friend stage, before things got romantic. And so there was a time, and I'll try and make this quick story, guys, but Steve invited me to come to his house and stay overnight. And I swear to you guys in the chat, and I swear to TJ, nothing went on romantically during that visit. Uh, you know, he stayed in his bedroom. I stayed in the spare bedroom at night. There was no switching back and forth and playing musical bedrooms at that point in time. So it was strictly, a platonic relationship. But I just felt something when Steve brought me back to my parents' house. Steve had never hugged me before. And before he left, he gave me this big hug. And at that point, I felt something's changed a little bit here. And then it just went on from there. So I totally get what both Dirk and Texas are talking about. So yeah, like I said, TJ, you explained that so perfectly that I don't have a whole lot to add without seeming like I'm retreading over what you just explained. So I'm going to hand it back over to TJ so he can reveal the twist to this particular episode.
Yeah, this is a mean one. The ending's like, boy, really? Is this what happens? We're watching it today. I'm like, I was kind of pissed off. I'm like, this is. I mean, it's Tales from the Darkside. It's not supposed to be happy endings, right. Even though some of them have had their twisted happy endings. But I was like, this is kind of mean. So anyway, like I said, they Jimmy James and Ms. Medusa, they go to the place where she was at the beginning of the episode to go get some more sunglasses. Oh, by the way, I want to mention a couple of her lines that I really like. When he's asking about, where's she from and stuff like that, and she's like, "Are you visiting?" And she's like, "I'm always visiting," which is kind of like telling right at the beginning that, especially with, obviously, I'm going to guess she that was the first time she was a mannequin at the beginning of the episode. And when it's not funny, but there's like some like light moments where she's like, he's talking about having amnesia, and she says, "Yes, I have it very badly," which is I just thought that was funny the way she said it. And when he's trying to get him to, he's trying to get her to remember things, she's like, "I don't want to remember it." She's very like strong about that. Also, I said they were good actors. I think they have a good chemistry together too, which I think really helps the episode, because they're actors, they should act like they have chemistry, but I think they really work together well. And it's funny because she basically did a few acting things, but she was basically a writer on soap operas, and then the same with him. He didn't seem to do much. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they go back to the store to get sunglasses, and she has him wait outside, and she's sort of sneaking in there slowly. And like I said, there was a big window. The lights from a truck going by kind of startle her. She kind of stumbles and ends up face to face with her reflection in the mirror, which sadly she turns back into a mannequin. But not just that. The robber who she froze at the beginning of the episode now is no longer a mannequin, because I guess, once she's back to her whatever form that the whoever she looked at gets turned back, which kind of like she says early in the movie, the episode, that she's like, "Yes, I killed a lot of people." And I was like, well, if they come back after you're put under, you really kind of get off the hook there a little bit. But anyway. Like I said, this doesn't end happy at all. So he goes in. Jimmy James goes in to try to see what's going on, and the robber shoots him fatally, and he basically is. It's another. If you look at the mannequin, she's sort of. She looks like she's like. I guess it looks like she's really is like. She can feel like she knows what's going on in front of her because he's slowly dying and he's calling out for her and it's pretty sad. He's saying a lot of the way he's saying a lot of things. He's like, where are you? Did they kill you too? And as he's dying, gets his last couple of breaths, he's like, I just want you to hold me. And it's like, it's so sad,
Yes.
And that, it looks like she wants to do something, but she can't because she's a mannequin. And she's like that's another thing too. Whoever did the mannequins really did good, making her face look like she's not alive, but she is alive. It's like those paintings where they say the eyes follow you. That's what kind of reminds me of that. There's actually some feeling behind everything, and then it sort of just ends with him bloody and get pretty much dead, I'm guessing, and then that's the end of the episode. And I was like, oh, that's tragedy. That's so bad.
That is being cruel to your audience, is what that is.
I mean, maybe the paramedics came, but nobody probably comes to this place anyways in the first place.
Which makes me think of a quote from Hitchcock, was that he says that you should you should torment the audience as much as possible. That was one of his quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good episode, and now we're coming up on one of my favorite episodes. But I'm wanting to hear what TJ thinks of this one. The Milkman Cometh, with my man Robert Forster in it. Although his hair is crazy in this is not good Robert Forster hair. So I know he was definitely losing his hair by this time. So maybe that's fake hair. I don't know, but it's just weird. So I'll let TJ talk about it first, and then I'll jump in there with a few things.
Yeah, so it starts off with this kid and his family. Kid Sandy, played by Chad Allen, from TerraVision. I'm surprised. Well, he's not like a Corey Feldman as far as maybe his popularity, though he was in a lot of stuff. I don't know. Would think that I don't know if Garrett's a fan of Chad Allen or not, but
he was definitely in those the teen magazines that the girls had, Tiger Beat and all those things when I was a kid. And I believe I had Chad Allen on my wall at one point in time. So he was definitely in those magazines.
He was in that Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman and that show My Two Dads.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird. So, the husband's a ad executive type of person. He's like Darren on Bewitched. He's the guy, whatever it's called, the guys who create the ads and do the drawings or whatever. And he hates his job like everybody else, and the family's not doing too good, financially. The wife comments about they only have $200 in the bank, and I'm like, if you have $200 in the bank, you're in deep trouble. Like, how are you paying off the mortgage? I mean, that seems a little. And then she had a miscarriage, which is pretty sad, and so yeah, they're really down on their luck. And then Sandy, the son, mentions that one of the neighbors, he said if you leave a note for the milkman, you'll end up getting luck because of this, or you'll get what you asked the mailman for. And they're sort of the father's kind of skeptical about it, but he decides to jokingly write a little, because the wife's like, could you leave a message for the milkman? This is, you kids don't know milkmen are. They used to bring milk and cheese and other products, dairy products, directly to your house, and you'd write a note, or they check off or a list or whatever, and they bring you the stuff. So
I know that they did that, but I was never witness to an actual milkman coming. No. And I lived out in the boonies too. I think that was more of a if you lived in a subdivision or something like that in the suburbs, or as they call it, then the milkman would come and do that. I don't know when that stopped. I think actually Steve and I were talking about that at one time. When did people stop having the milkman come and like
Hmm,
bring you fresh milk? And I bet TJ's gonna look it up here.
I did. Let's see. Yeah, with the 50s and 60s, well, like you're saying, it was more like, I think it was more rural areas where you couldn't get to the supermarket all the time, and I'm sure it was more like, I'm only guessing that it was probably more places that were like farmer areas where they had farms, so they could hire somebody to whatever pick up at the local dairy farms and sort of trap. Well, like if you live 100 miles apart from each other, I'm guessing it's like one of those situations. But as grocery stores were opening more and more, and sort of like early gentrification.
Yeah, and it's like go get your own damn milk when
Yeah,
the
yeah.
grocery stores started getting big.
But yeah, so he jokingly leaves a note about, because his kid's been looking for his watch, and he can't find his favorite watch. They must be poor. The kid has a favorite watch. So, um, so he writes the note to the milkman about finding a watch, getting a watch for the kid, and wouldn't you know it, next day he found his watch. He found his watch. So the guy starts thinking, well, maybe start asking the milkman for more things, and he starts asking for money. He also a neighbor, a friend of his, has also been doing the same thing, where he's like, I got 8 cars now because I keep winning. Because the milkman doesn't give you things specifically, but he'll let you win the lottery or something like that, or because the father, he's been betting horses, and they've all been coming in because the milkman somehow is giving him the luck to win. And he also hasn't been working, and so his wife kind of gets pissed off, and some weird things are happening. And then he decides because no one sees the milkman, no one knows what he looks like. He decides one night that he's gonna, kind of like a Santa Claus thing, where he's gonna camp out and wait for Milk Santa to show up, and
Right.
and yeah, and then things start going awry. Let's say that. But yeah, your favorite episode. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So the top reason why this is my favorite episode, I think, is because Robert Forster's in it, of course, and I love that guy. But I liked the suspense, the weirdness of this episode, and I don't want to give too much away because we're going to get to the twist about this. But there's a reason why, and I'm not going to give it away right this second, that the milkman doesn't want anybody to see him. And so if you try, it's almost like he is Santa Claus, because you're not supposed to see Santa Claus. Kids aren't supposed to see Santa Claus when he comes down the chimney and supposedly puts the presents under your tree and all that. You're supposed to be in bed. So when the milkman comes in this episode, you're supposed to be in bed or otherwise inside your house. You're not supposed to be waiting there to open the door and say, "Oh, hello, milkman," And if you do try to catch a glimpse of him, he will run away real quickly. All he wants is to bring you milk, and like if you leave him notes telling him what you want, money or whatever, he will make sure you get it. And it's just like TJ said, he doesn't just flat out give it to you. He doesn't bring it back with next week's milk or whatever. He, allows you to win the lottery, or allows you to win on betting horses, or, whatever you're into. So again, I'm not going to give away the twist, but there's one thing that happens before the twist. And remember when TJ said that the wife had had a miscarriage, but they still really wanted to have a baby. So Sandy gets the idea that that's what he's I think he gets the idea, but I can't remember, and TJ might be able to help me out. Does Sandy actually ask the milkman for a baby brother or sister, or does he
I think
encourage
the dad. I think that's the dad.
the dad does it? So that's one of the things that Robert Forster's character of the father asks, is for his wife to give birth to a healthy baby. And so we're getting into twist territory, and I want to let TJ do the reveal on that. So I don't want to give that away, but I don't know if it was shocking to TJ if he thinks back to the first time he watched this episode, but it was kind of shocking to me the first time I saw it when the reveal happens, and you discover exactly who the milkman really is. So I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to reveal that twist for you guys.
Yeah. Also, we only see the silhouette of the milkman in the shade down of the back door to the house. So that's all we really see. Well, until the wife becomes pregnant, and then she finds out what's going on, and she's like, you can't get something for nothing. You can't do this, and you're gonna owe something. And she's very upset about it, and he's sort of like, oh yeah, he won't do it again, but he's gonna do it again, and he does it again. Yeah, and we find out. Yeah, there are some consequences. So his friend tells him that his wife was in a car accident, and she was killed, or when the brakes failed on one of their 8 cars. So there's a hint that there's some payback for what you do, and of course he's upset, and now they're worried about the baby, and he asked the milkman for the baby to be born because the wife's very like, I don't know if he thinks she's going to leave him. I'm not sure about that part about why he needs the baby to come as soon as possible. I mean,
I'm wondering if maybe he's afraid that if she carries it for very long that she'll miscarry again or something, or
maybe,
something bad will happen to, or the baby will be born, stillborn or something like that. I don't know if that's his fear exactly or what.
I was just thinking that in the movie The Ring, where Naomi Watts goes to the dad, and he's like, my wife was never supposed to have a child. Just like, came right to me. Anyway. And then he kills himself in the bathtub. Anyway, spoiler if you haven't seen The Ring. So the next day the baby comes, and well, he tries to catch the mailman one more time, and he sort of, because he's been drinking all night because he's worried about what's going on, and he sort of falls unconscious, and then the milkman reaches over to the little box where they put the milk and where they put the notes and everything, and you see the milkman's hand, and it's green and scaly.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he's some kind of alien monster, demon creature. I don't know, because all we see is the hand.
Right.
So it's the next day, and the door has been open all night. I'm surprised they didn't get robbed. But anyway, he's unconscious in the doorway with the door open, and he wakes up, and the sun comes down. Sandy comes down with the baby that was just born, and he doesn't look too happy. He looks very kind of worried, and maybe not scared, but more worried. And
I think he looks like he's in shock a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd go for that. And we sort of hear the baby start making some noise, and then the baby's hands come out of the little napkin. Yeah, a little blanket that the baby's wrapped in, and has the two little scaly green hands like the milkman had. So I guess the price to pay is you have the milkman's baby, technically.
Yeah.
And it ends on the baby's hands, and it's like, yeah.
You know, why try to look for, logic in something like this? But I remember thinking, though, how did the milkman have that guy's wife have his baby, essentially? I mean, did he like make everybody go to sleep and he took advantage of the wife or something? And
like Village of the Damned, where all the women woke up in town and they were all pregnant, maybe it's something like that.
Exactly. Maybe if he was an alien or something, he was able to impregnate her some way. You know how people say they've been, kind of molested by aliens, or they had probes and all that, anal probes and all that stuff.
Yes.
Maybe they did artificial, and maybe
I do not have a salad dish coming out of my ass. Remember that South Park episode, everybody? The first episode.
Oh man. Okay, so that's the milkman cometh. Which brings us to the next episode, my Ghost Rider, the Vampire. And I like this one too.
This one's cute. It's they've already had vampires before, but
this was a different take on it, I thought.
Yeah, well, this is very of Interview with the Vampire, which I'm like, they knew, they must have known him, because didn't that book come out in the 60s?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Can't remember now for sure.
I think the novel came out when the novel came out. The movie came out in 94. That was before this, but 76. So yeah.
76, the year I was born. So it's
there you go.
Looks as old as I am.
So yeah, it was definitely in the lexicon. So I'm guessing that big word, folks, lexicon. So it's about this sort of hack writer named Peter Prentice, who's had basically like one book, played by Jeff Conway from Taxi and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Grease,
yeah. I gotta put what Darkside about alien milk and about the milkman coming. I hope that doesn't get me kicked off of YouTube.
If you don't phrase it any differently than that, you'll be fine. Anyway, so it's Peter and his basically co-writer, assistant, sort of a ghostwriter, Jane, who I thought was putting on a fake British accent, but she's actually legitimately British, which I was like, oh, okay. She's sort of over exaggerated. She's like a Valley girl, British Valley girl, I guess. And she was married to Magnum PI for a brief time, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, it's funny when you look up these people and like never heard of them, and then like, oh, who knew that they had like some kind of life? There's a guy later in another episode who had a really interesting life, but when we get to that, Peter just can't write an original idea, and he's not really a horror fan, though he has sort of things around his house that are horror related. Anyway, so he gets visited by Count Draco, who is an actual vampire, and he's looking basically for a place to stay, to get out of the sun. He's basically looking for room and board, is what he's looking for. Yeah. He's like a vampire college student, and he needs a place to stay while he's
he needs a place
in the town. Yeah. So, but he's like, I don't know, 60 years old. I don't know who this guy is. Anyway. So Count Dracula's like, all right, you give me a room and board, and I will tell you my tales of being a vampire. So he starts telling him stories, and he starts learning all these things, and he writes this really successful novel. What is the name of the novel? I'll tell you in a second.
Well, I'm glad TJ has it in his notes. I've forgotten.
Mm-hmm. 900 Years of Darkness is this book, which is interesting title. So yeah, he does things like kill the cleaning lady, and Peter makes a very bad joke about, well, they'll just think immigration got her, and I was like, ooh, that's a pretty, what kind of, that's not a good joke. But yeah, so but the vampire gets jealous that he's basically taking all the credit for the stories and not giving any credit to anybody else, which is what his assistant earlier was saying, that how you kind of just take to and make it people think it's yours, and then you live off of the fruits of your success, and everybody else gets screwed over. So the vampire's like, I ain't taking this. So it's about daylight's coming soon, and the vampire's getting back to his coffin. He's like, we'll take care of this tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't do that because Peter has laid out a bunch of silverware in the vampire's coffin, and he's like, no, I cannot go into the coffin because there's forks and knives and spoons. He didn't say that, but that'd be funny if he said that. Because it's a lighter episode. It's got some cute, funny moments here and there. It's not overly funny, but it's got some moments. And he basically kills the vampire with a fork, and the vampire turns into, he actually dies pretty intensely. I mean, he's screaming and gasping, and his face becomes pale, and all these red like veins are all kind of, they look like they're drawn on, but the way he's like sort of gritting his teeth and like in pain, everything really looks kind of cool and like as gruesome as it can look. And the vampire turns to dust. Woohoo! So he's like, all right, I got enough of his stories to write like 20 more books. And his assistant comes back the next day and knocking on the door, and he's like, hey, let me in, we got to talk. And she lets him in, and he lets her in, and they start talking. And then something else happens, and I will hold off from saying what happens.
So, like TJ said, that this is a lighter episode, which you kind of need those lighter episodes thrown in, because Miss Medusa, of course, was kind of mean-spirited at the end. Well, no, kind of about it. Was mean-spirited at the end, the way that ended. And then the Milkman Cometh was pretty dark by the end of it. So I think it's good when they balance maybe a couple of dark episodes with a lighter episode. But it is, as TJ said, still effective. And the vampire in question does die quite spectacularly for a television show. Keep in mind, this is not Hollywood's version of a vampire dying. So it's TV's version of a vampire dying. So I thought it was pretty damn good as well. And with those hints of comedy in there, and the way that even Jeff Conway's character interacts with the girl that's kind of his original ghostwriter before he turns to the vampire for inspiration. The way he uses people, but it's almost like a lower grade EC Comics, because he's not an evil guy Jeff Conaway's character is not an evil guy. He just sees his way to take advantage of people, and he benefits from it, which is not a good. That's a definite character flaw.
He's a dick. That's right.
Yeah, he is a dick. He's not evil. He's a dick. So I think he kind of gets what he deserves. So I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to reveal that twist for you.
Yep. So as Jane comes back into the fold, she wants to sue him for plagiarism and whatnot, which I thought was a good line. I want to sue you for plagiarism. Oh, that was not British. That was a terrible. All right. Anyway, she comes in. She's wearing this. She's interesting dress. She's wearing this sort of cape with a hood, very Countess Dracula. But she basically finds out that there's been a vampire there, because she's like, you could not have written all this stuff. You're not that creative. You're not that bright. You just could have not have made such amazing stories. And she finds the vampire's secret lair. Oh, he has swept up. He swept up the remains of the vampire with his little dustpan and brush, and he puts it back, throws everything back into the coffin, kind of like, I'm done with that.
Which is kind of funny too.
And they ate the maid, so you know. So Jane finds the coffin, but an interesting way, he has sort of this bookcase, this hidden room behind a bookcase, where he has, I forget what he had. He has his whatever paraphernalia that the vampire had to move out so he could put his coffin there. But he has this little, like, one of those secret levers. So it's this severed head with an axe, with the little axe in it, and you pull down the axe and the door opens, which I think that's kind of a cool addition. So anyway, she opens up the door and finds the coffin, and she's like, I knew it. You had a vampire here. Like, okay, that sounds legitimate. All right. This is a funny episode, so you can kind of deal with that. So she had cut her finger, and had it wrapped up. But as she's leaning over the coffin, she drops in a couple of drops of blood, and she goes to Peter. Hey, I hope your vampire friend isn't mad. I dropped some blood in his coffin. Well, wouldn't you know it? That blood brings the vampire back. The vampire exacts his revenge on Mr. Peter Prentice, who is now Vampire Chow.
Yep.
I didn't mean that to rhyme, but they did. And and he's about to eat Jane, and he's like, I only kill for food, but in this case I have to make an exception. That was a terrible accent. And he's about to attack her. Yeah. He's about to attack her. She throws off her suspicious robe, and she has crosses for earrings and a cross on her neck, and she's all protected from the vampire. And she's like, wait, I'll take these off, but I want you to tell me your stories, and I will go 50-50 with you. And he's like thinking, and he's like, okay, we can make a deal. So they become partners, and as they're leaving, she goes, she does the Mae West voice, and she's like, I think this is going to be the start of our wonderful friendship. And that's the end of the episode. So Mr. Prentice gets his comeuppance for being a plagiarist and letting his maid get killed, and double-crossing a vampire and his friend, and happy ending.
I think it was a very appropriate ending to that particular episode, because in the end, everybody except Jeff Conway's character pretty much got what they wanted. I mean, he didn't want to end up dead, but you know, that's what happens when you play with fire, isn't it?
Yes.
Or you play with vampires in this case. But yeah, a nice lighter episode. And again, we really needed that because starting with disc 3 in my set, we have My Own Place, which I think is a very bizarre and very disturbing episode.
And
So,
confusing AF.
yeah, a little confusing, but bizarre and disturbing as well. So take it away, TJ, with My Own Place.
So we have another two episodes where there's a character named Sandy. Sandy, played by Peter Lang, is moving out on his own, and he finds an apartment at a very cheap price. It's guessing it's the middle. Is it New York? I don't know. Did they say where it's set?
I was thinking it was New York, but it could be Chicago or something else too. Not really.
So it's a nice, spacious bunch of rooms, and it could be a penthouse. I don't know exactly, but it's at a cheap price. It's $285 a month, which is ridiculously cheap. And he's like, "Is there a catch to this?" Well, there is a catch. He has a roommate who no one really knows was there. This roommate sort of appears out of nowhere. The roommate's played by the guy who played the vampire in the previous episode from the first half of the season. The one with, what the hell was that one? What was that one called?
Was that the Strange Love episode?
That's the one, right? So the same guy he went from playing the vampire to playing a he's Hindu, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's what he appears to be.
And I say that because he talks about reincarnation and stuff. And the guy's like, "Hey, this is my apartment. Get out of here!" And he's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere." And then he says a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, "The stuff that makes you not like the guy," because he's like, "Well, a lot of like go back to Calcutta and kind of." He doesn't say get out of the country, but he basically like, well, another immigration thing, and like, we might have to. I'm like, yeah, this guy's not the nicest guy. He doesn't seem too bad, but even the nicest people kind of can be, as previously stated, dick. So yeah, he's this guy, and is no one else has met this guy. He tells to the woman who sold him the place, to rented him the place. She's like, well, it's rent controlled, and you can't. It's hard to kick people out of houses, out of their apartments, because that's how it is. Unless when you have like housing like that, unless you die, people aren't going to let go of that prime real estate, so to speak. Anyway. So his girlfriend she's like asking about the guy because she's never seen him, played by Nancy Travis. Everybody should know who Nancy Travis is. She's been around for 1,000 years.
It seems like it.
So I Married an Axe Murderer, her best movie, I think. Anyway. Oh, one of my favorite shows. She was on Becker too. She played with Ted Danson, and Shawnee Sauce Smith was in it.
Oh.
She's very good at comedy, Shawnee Smith. I think she should do more comedies, but I don't think she's done a lot really.
I thought she was good in Summer School, as well.
Oh yeah, that was an early Shawnee Smith. That was very early. So yeah, this is it. So Sandy starts seeing visions where people are rushing at him, and it's sort of hazy and just this weird, disjointed. Whether they're dreams or visions or whatever they are, they're very, very odd. That's another thing. It's hard to describe this episode. I mean, I could go through the motions of the episode, but I'm not really 100% sure what was going on. This is hard to not talk about the spoiler without, really talking about it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm wondering. I hope I don't kind of give anything away by saying this, but I felt like there was a reincarnation element kind of in this.
yes, because he does mention that if he came, Ram is the character's name, and he's like, if I come back, I'd come back as a bird or whatever. So yeah, that's what I mean. I think if I knew more about Indian and Hindu religion and folklore and all that stuff, I might know more about what's going on in the episode, which
Right.
I didn't have time to really research that because that takes more than just looking up a quick Wikipedia article.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I don't totally understand the whole episode either.
Like I saw one review and the guy's like, "Yeah, I have no idea what I just watched." It's interesting. It's not boring, but it's just when you're confused, you're like sort of out of watching it, paying attention to it as much as you should be. Even like having Nancy Travis just come in and go, "Oh, I haven't met him. Oh, this sounds weird." It's like she's not really necessary to the plot, really. I mean,
not really. No.
But I don't know. We can just get to the ending. I don't know.
I just wanted to say that again. I wanted to reiterate how bizarre this episode is, and that TJ is exactly right when he says how confusing it is. But I just wanted to ask you, TJ, when you were talking about the guy being a dick, were you talking about Ram or were you talking about
Sandy?
Sandy, yeah, because Ram seems like that he's a victim of circumstance, kind of. He's just there. He really can't explain why he's there, how he got there, why he can't leave. But
Yeah.
I do remember him repeatedly telling Sandy that he couldn't leave, or somehow hinting that he was not able to leave that apartment. And so all the while Sandy's getting more and more aggravated. But then you have those flashing to scenes that look like they were a family was having like a wake or a funeral or something to that effect. And then there was a bunch of chaos before that.
Yeah.
And you just got little snippets of this. But I like the episode. It was never boring or dull.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on in it. I just kind of wish they had maybe not, they didn't have to spoon feed me with this one, but I wish they had give a little, just a tiny bit more clarification of exactly what was going on here. Because like TJ said, one guy was doing a review of it and he's like, I don't know what I just watched. So, and that's kind of how I felt. It was good and not boring and all of that. Just need a little more clarification. And I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to try to decipher this twist a little bit.
Well, we have the character of Maya, who's the person who showed him the apartment and was renting it out, and like she doesn't tell him anything. Like, well, let me tell you what happened. So then I'll kind of explain it, what I'm trying to get at. And also I forgot to set up. There's this broken window. That where Maya is like, oh, we'll get that fixed soon. Which in the whole episode, there's no one ever comes over to even look at it and go, oh. So yeah, we get to, so Ram's sort of, so he's like tries to get rid of Ram by basically boarding him up, so to speak, into one of the other rooms where he's like, you stay in here. He sort of tricks him into the room, and he sort of starts, sealing it up.
And poor Ram looks kind of like a poor puppy dog that you put behind a puppy gate or a baby gate.
Yeah.
And just kind of the way he's looking as he's being boarded into this.
Because you're on his side in this episode because like he can't, like I said, he can't really leave. So and he's not being a pain, and it's a big apartment too. It's not like and the guy doesn't use all the rooms. But I mean, it makes sense. You don't want somebody in your apartment. But anyway, so Ram sort of he feels the next, he sort of feels sorry that he did that. And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this, and because he says earlier in the episode, I'm a nice guy, which is usually that's what people say when they're not super nice. It's like. It's like, yeah, I'm the best looking guy in the world. Are you? Okay. Anyway, so he goes into the room, which also the room is the one that has the broken window. And then he starts seeing the vision start again, but it's like it's actually happening because he's actually part of the vision now. Mm-hmm. And all these people are swarming around. And like you said, it looks like it's awake. And we see that the body on the that's being, waked is Ram's body. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing he's been a ghost all this time. That's another thing with Maya, the realtor. She's sort of never really, like even you said, there's rumors that this place is haunted. Like there's no mention of that. So I mean, I guess as an audience, we're supposed to assume. I mean, I like that at least that. Yeah, they didn't explain a lot about really what's going on, but they do leave it. Maybe they're sort of like the audience is a little smarter that they can sort of figure out what's going on. So I like that aspect of it, even though I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Evidently, a lot of people didn't.
Yeah. So this is the part where I get confused. Okay, now I understand that it's the wake and he's been dead. Because Ram has also mentioned that in where he lives, there's so many people in one room that like, it's kind of like once somebody leaves, it's less crowded or whatever. Which brings me to what happens. So Sandy sees Ram's body, sort of realizes what's going on. Now all these people sort of swarm around him, and they grab him, and they sort of body surf him out the hole in the window to his death.
Yeah.
And that's where it lost me. I was like, so is that because there was one extra person in the room and they needed to get rid of the person? Or was he being punished because he was slightly racist? Or was it... I don't know. And
I guess there could have been a lot of different interpretations, but again, they could have gave us some sort of clarification and they didn't.
Yeah. And then the final twist is... It's another day. Everything's emptied out of the place, and Maya's showing a woman the apartment, a young woman, and she's like, $285 a month. Wow, this place is beautiful. That's ridiculous, and she's like, that's what it is. And don't worry, we'll fix that hole. And that was the end of the episode.
Sure, you will.
And I'm like, so she just sets people up to be murdered, Ram mentions being reincarnated as a bird or whatever. Actually, and as we're in the apartment at the end of that last scene, we sort of hear the sound of a bird, which I'm guessing that's him reincarnated. So he's no longer a ghost. So maybe this woman's safe, or is it going to just keep happening over and over again? I don't know.
I just wondered that at some points if Maya, the realtor or whatever, was a relative of Ram's. And maybe she was trying to get justice for him somehow.
Yeah, but no one killed him. Like, it's not like the Pollard floor front where it's like revenge type of thing for or the jewelry because he's not like a witch doctor or whatever. He's just like a regular guy that just happens to be a ghost, I guess.
I just wonder though, even though they didn't show it, if the quote unquote white man caused the death of Ram somehow.
Yeah, it's very vague. I mean, that's
very, very vague.
Now, if they had a close up of Maya when they were showing all the people in the room and like sent it on her, but they didn't do that. She's only at the beginning, at the end, and it's basically she's just there to go 285 and we'll fix that hole. It's basically that's her big role.
That's her only part in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But He mentioned Parlor Floor Front. I think even though it's not exactly the same story, you have somebody that's not really refusing to leave, but they can't leave.
Yeah.
And it's also reminds me of A New Lease on Life, where the guy comes to an apartment and the price is too good to be true. And we find out why at
Yeah.
the end of that episode. So it's kind of reminiscent of both of those episodes, although not exactly like those.
Oh, by the way, the Sandy, he's a likable character, even when certain things he say are I don't know how you know how to take them or not. I mean, like I said, he's frustrated and stuff like that. I don't think he's like full blown racist, but then this was the '80s where people were saying certain words that nowadays you can't say anymore. That were just like that's the word. We weren't using it to be mean or whatever, but you know. Thinking back, maybe it was a little mean. When people talk about immigration to someone, you know, of a foreign country, yeah. But anyway, the actor Perry Lang, I don't know if you know, he was an actor for a long. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in a lot of early '80s things. Well, he was in 1941. He was an alligator from 1980.
Ah, I need to go back and look for him in that.
Yeah, he played he played a cop in that one.
Oh, you know what? I may remember.
He played Officer Kelly.
Yes, exactly. When you said that, I remember.
Actually, I'm looking now that I'm trying to look in after I know the things I already knew. Oh, he did that. He did that beach movie, Zuma Beach, back from the '70s. Oh, I remember that. What was it? That's a weird. He was in The Hearse. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but
yeah,
but I have seen it. Yeah.
And Mortuary Academy. Wow, I haven't seen that movie for a long time.
I don't know if I've seen Mortuary Academy though.
That's a show that's a movie I remember from Up All Night. I think it was a Rhonda had shown it.
Rhonda Shear.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's that episode.
So I'm going to read a few of these chat messages here before we move on to
please do
the next episode. So Dirk says, I remember these coming on after the late night movie on CBS. I specifically remember watching my first episode after Mad Max. That damn intro creeped my young ass out. Yeah, the intro was something else too. You don't forget intros like that. They stick with you for the duration of your life, I think. Dirk also says that Hindu episode sounds like they expected the audience to automatically know the culture. That's kind of an odd choice. Hey, Kelly. Kelly says, hey, Dana and TJ. So moving right along is an episode that is not one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's not. I don't love it either.
Yeah, Red Leader. I think this one's kind of plotting and sort of boring. But I'll let TJ talk about it a little bit first.
Well, this is another slightly amusing one. Yeah, I don't think it's not my favorite. I mean, I remember it, but I'm like, yeah, I don't love it. And I mean, it's got some Italians in it, so I mean, that's okay.
Yeah,
so
that's
Alex,
okay. That's not what's bad about it.
Thank you. Anyway, so it's about Alex, who's just taken over for his partner Jake, who it sounds like there's some So they basically developers, and they develop buildings and whatever. But it sounds very crooked. Alex has taken over from Jake, who died, and Jake's ex-wife, his widow. Were they divorced? I can't remember. Anyway, the woman he was married to, whether it's divorced or ex-wife or whatever, or widower. He's the widow or whatever. she's like, I don't have any money because he left me with nothing, and could I get some, something through you? And he's like, buzz off. So he's not. Alex is sort of a jerk. He's not the nicest guy. Just waiting for his partner to die so he could take over the business. It's not the mob, but it's a pretty close facsimile of. So so that's sort of the setup. Well, this fissure opens up in the floor of the office, and it's Jake back from hell. What a shock! Because Jake was not the nicest guy. Jake was. It's not like the other episodes where we had somebody who's like killed a bunch of people, stuff like that. But he's a very shady businessman. And he comes back from the dead. He comes back from hell, and he tells Alex, "Look, I wanted to become a minion because a minion is sort of like not the head guy, but sort of like the guys that you kind of do all the fun stuff and all the
You kind of feel like you're next in line too to the red guy."
And he's like, "I spent my whole life kind of being the main guy, and I like kind of being like the secondary guy that kind of like gets in the field and does all the work." So he's escaping hell, and another minion comes looking for him, and then we find out a red leader is is also looking for him, and red leader is Satan, played by this British guy who's doing this weird suave, but he's got like a hard hat and stuff, and it's just this weird. He's dressed weird. And he's got this. I don't know. He's just a weird version of the devil, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Jake didn't escape. I let him go." And this is very. Have you ever seen Time Bandits?
I have, but it's been a while.
So in that movie, basically God gives the main characters this map so they can go through time travel, and the map shows them different places where the doors open to go through different times, and it's basically he gave them the map and he let them escape into the world and do all this stuff. So it kind of reminds me of that. So I don't know if the writer had seen Time Bandits, but I just wanted to kind of mention that because I thought, oh, this is because I was watching the episode and when Satan explains everything, I was like, this is Time Bandits. What the hell's going on? So yeah, that's the gist of it, and it's comedic. There's nothing really memorable, I'd say. I mean, the acting's fine. It's nothing that. It's just the story didn't really hook me. So.
Yeah, I was like that too. That there was not really anything that stood out in this episode, like some of the others that we've been talking about, and it's one of those episodes, and I hate to say this about a Tales from the Darkside episode, but this is one of those episodes where I find myself zoning out a little bit during it, and then I come back to myself and it's like, oh, this is still on. Because it's like it just for whatever reason it doesn't hold my attention. It works as a Tales from the Darkside episode. It just, I guess, didn't work for me on a personal level of enjoying it enough to be able to be engrossed in it like some of these other episodes. And so I think that's why it seemed to go on longer than some of the ones that I enjoyed. The ones I enjoyed, they just seem to just bam, they're here and they're gone.
Yeah.
The ones that don't really strike a chord with me or really interest me seem like they're just too long.
Yeah, I didn't remember any of it until I watched it again. I was like, oh, I remember this episode, but I'm like, at first I was like, I don't know a single thing about this. The most interesting thing about it is the guy who plays Jake he was in The Godfather 2 and The Money Pit and a bunch of movies, but I was reading up on him, and back in, I guess, the 2000s, he was the FBI was looking for him as a person of interest because he was the story's iffy on what actually happened, but he basically had a bunch of bootlegged movies in like tons of bootleg movies, and he was actually he had illegal copies of recently released movies on the internet.
Oh, there you go, guys. The FBI will come looking for you.
They threw him out of the motion picture Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. Like that's a rare occasion when they throw you out of something like that. I mean, they threw out Bill Cosby, they threw out the Weinsteins, they threw out Polanski. So yeah, you got to really do something either really deplorable or steal, which is what he did. Especially stealing from the Motion Picture Association, something that your job. If you're a working actor and you're in the Screen Actors Guild, you're getting paid in whatever, and it's like you just screwed yourself out of
Now, did TJ, did he go to prison or did he just get killed?
Well, now let's see. He claimed that the person who he got them from, he didn't know they were bootlegs, so he might have had time served or something like that, because it doesn't say specifically what happened. Like, I'd have to really read the internet to find out what happened. But yeah, he definitely got in trouble.
Usually either they'll fine you a big bunch of money or you'll go to prison, or in some cases both. Now, my cousin, not my cousin Heather that I talk about, but one of her sisters actually got in trouble because they thought she was downloading songs illegally. It wasn't movies. I believe it was songs, and it wasn't her. Somebody else was doing something under her account or something. And I believe they were sharing out stuff that she had on her personal computer. And of course, the powers that be did not listen to her when she said, "Hey, I wasn't doing it." Their answer was, "Well, it's on your computer. This stuff came from your computer, so we blame you." And so her dad had to pay a really big fine to get her out of trouble with that. So guys, be very careful with stuff that you've got on your computer, even if you're not sharing it out. Make sure that nobody else could do nefarious things and get access to your stuff.
Wipe your browser history.
Exactly.
But yeah, this episode was. Well, I guess we didn't really. I forgot we didn't finish it. That's all.
I'll let TJ talk about the twist for this one.
Boy, this episode just keeps going on and on. I thought it was over. So the devil offers Alex. I'll bring you. You'll be like my head minion, and you'll have. I'll really help you out. And he's like, no, he's like, I want to turn over a new leaf. I don't want to be a bad guy anymore. And he said a piece of dialogue I wrote down, which I liked. Let me see. He's like, what do I do? Get rid of the evidence. Get rid of the evidence. Do a good deed. What do I do? Then he says, I'll get all those old people I threw out and give them a new apartment building. And then he goes, oh no, they're probably all dead from the cold anyway. So you
that's so cruel.
Such a great guy, this guy. So the ex-wife, the widow of the wife who comes back, and she's pissed off, and she's threatening him, sort of. But then a gun magically appears because the devil's trying to help out here. So a gun magically appears, and she notices it, and she picks it up, and she she shoots Alex and kills him. And then, because that hole is still there, she kicks him into the hole to hell. And she's like, well, that's that. I mean, she gets not out of it, but she gets the satisfaction of killing Alex. And yeah. So she leaves, and we hear Alex in hell talking to Satan. He's like, I want commission and salary and stocks, and Satan's like, that's my boy.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, he gets everything he wants. He has a happier ending than they did in Miss Medusa.
Yeah, actually he does. Which brings us to an episode that I do like, very much so. Everybody needs a little love, and this has the guy who played Baby's daddy in
Terry Warbeck. Yep.
In Dirty Dancing.
Yep.
He's been in other stuff too, but every time I
he was in the Law and Order for like the whole run, I think. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was.
I watch Law and Order. I know the show, of course, but I don't think.
You know what voice he did? The Disney voice. You know which one he did?
Nope.
He did Lumiere in the cartoon Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm gonna let TJ get started talking about this episode, and then I'll talk a little bit about, and then we'll give you the twist to this one.
Yes, so we have it sort of opens up with it's like a film noir, it's like a film noir type of thing where a guy's talking about, he's talking about what's happened in the story. So we're seeing it from his point of view. And of course, taking into consideration that usually when we're doing a point of view story, it's the point of view of the person. So things that are happening might not be exactly what happened. So I'll just say that. So he has his friend Curtis, who sort of comes over to him and is like, yeah, he's been divorced for a while, and he's just my buddy, and we just want to go out and drink and hang out and whatever. And he introduces him to his new girlfriend, and Curtis is dating Estelle, and he brings her over, and she's not what Roberts was expecting Curtis to be dating. She is a legitimate mannequin. This is not a sequel to Miss Medusa. This is he actually has a mannequin who he's been seeing.
Door mannequin, yeah.
Who is named Estelle, which is like, okay. And they're having drinks, and he's acting like she's alive. And he starts dancing with her they go over Robert's place, and they're sort of drinking, having fun, and he starts dancing with Estelle, and he's looking over at Curtis and Estelle, and for a second, it looks like there's some movement in Estelle, but Roberts just thinks it's the drink or whatever. And yeah, and then we find out that Curtis has been missing work, and he's been spending time with Estelle alone, and things are getting weird. And then a detective, while Roberts is sort of daydreaming about a night out with Estelle, where he's sort of getting into Estelle now, which is weird. So
yeah, it gets very bizarre about midway to this episode.
So he's dreaming of having an affair with Estelle. The detective sort of taps him on the shoulder. Hey, buddy, we got to talk. There's some weird stuff going on with your friend, and we hear about his friend's wife who's been missing. And Roberts is like, I just thought they got divorced. And it's like, no, we haven't seen us. She hasn't seen Estelle, which is the name of Curtis's wife, which is a little crazy. And he meets up with Curtis again, and because he hasn't seen Curtis for a while, and Curtis sort of shows up, and he's like, talking about Estelle, and he's like, "There's something you want to tell me," and yeah, it sort of goes from there. So take it away.
So yeah, TJ's right. There's a lot of bizarre stuff in here, and as an audience, we're with Roberts. We catch these little glimpses, a little twinkle in the mannequin's eye, a little flash of a smile. Maybe did we actually see that? Of course, like TJ said, Roberts thinks he's under the influence of alcohol, and that's why at some points in time the mannequin seems alive. Um, there's even some later scenes where um, it's like Robert sees Estelle, just the mannequin Estelle, having just entire conversations, and you slide over to Curtis, and Curtis looks like a mannequin. Curtis is just staring blankly and not moving, and Estelle is all animated and all that. Um, and some of the some of the parts are kind of a little bit funny because Curtis says that he took Estelle on vacation and took her to the beach or
Yes.
something. And Roberts is looking at him like, "Are you serious? You took that thing to the beach?" And he's like, "Don't you ever talk about Estelle that way,"
Yeah.
because Roberts is getting kind of. I think he wants Curtis to react at some point because Curtis kind of steps out of the room a little bit, and Robert says, "Maybe you'll come alive for me, huh?" And he starts kind of sliding her dress up a little bit on the mannequin's leg, and then Curtis comes back in the room and knocks Roberts out. It's like, "Don't you ever do that again." It's like, Estelle's a lady. You don't treat her like that. And so there's all these kind of bizarre things.
At that point, he's trying to get his friend to like break free of whatever spell the mannequin holds over him. He's trying to. That's why he's doing the whole. But yeah, also he's sort of falling for the mannequin too. He's sort of.
Yeah, there's some kind of jealousy, like a love triangle.
Yeah.
A little bit there, um, which I don't want to give any more away before TJ gives the twist. But I do like. I love the atmosphere. I agree with TJ that it is like a film noir type of.
It should have been black and white. It would have been cooler in black and white.
Yeah, yeah, they should have done it upright and done it in black and white. Were there? Am I wrong, or were there some scenes when they kind of flashed back to things that had happened? Were any of those in black and white?
I think so. I can't remember if I'm actually thinking about it because you said it, or because I think there were like some brief glimpses of black. That would have made sense since it's sort of set up like this, where he's in telling a story or whatever, and from his point of view. And
but a very
dialogue seems like yes, this dame had legs longer than the Empire State Building or whatever. I can't.
But I feel like this is, even though this was the third season episode, I still feel like this is a classic Tales from the Darkside episode.
Yeah.
Or it is for me anyway. So now I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to reveal the twist for you guys.
Yeah, so I forget if he goes to see his friend he goes to his friend's apartment. He finds him there, and what the hell happened? He finds him there, and the mannequin and Estelle's there, and he's trying to get him to kind of snap out of what's going on. And yeah, there we go. I'm back on track. So he's trying to snap out of what's going on, and they're sort of struggling together. And he kind of looks behind him and is shocked, and Roberts gets knocked out, and he wakes up to find his friend dead with a big knife sticking out of his chest. We come to believe that the mannequin is alive, and the mannequin killed him, and is basically framing Roberts for the murder. And so he's been telling the story. He's in jail basically, and while he's telling the story and saying it's Estelle, she did it, she killed him. I didn't do anything. It's Estelle. She's alive. She's alive. And we see this woman we see her in silhouette. We don't see her face. And anyway, so we don't see her face, and she's like, he's crazy, and what's all this talk about a mannequin being alive? And we find out she is Estelle, the wife. And guess what she looks like? She looks exactly like the mannequin. Because, dun dun dun, Estelle is the mannequin. And if you don't believe that, as the credits are starting to roll, and she asked the cop, talking to her for a cigarette, and she starts smoking it, and as he's still in there screaming about Estelle, she's like giving one of those evil smiles where it's like, ha ha, it's me, ha ha.
Yeah, I got you. I got both of you. That's the kind of look, she got Curtis and she got Roberts too. And
so that's where it's like, did he really imagine all this, and was she really always there? And this mannequin was not real. And so, yeah, there's a lot of levels to the ending. You can see it in different ways, which I like.
I think it's one of those that they probably left it open to interpretation for the audience.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different ways that you could look at it. So Dirk says, look at this chat messages here. Dirk says, speaking of film noir, I just grabbed one from the 40s, Double Indemnity from Criterion. Ooh, cool. I'm starting to get more and more into film noir type of stuff.
Isn't there a remake of that? The original? There was a remake of Double Indemnity. Am I thinking that's...
There may be.
Because I know I've seen one of the versions. Yeah, because it's a 1944 film. Did they make a remake? I thought they did a remake. Did they do a remake? Damn you, jerk. Now I gotta look this up. Well, they did a TV movie in the 70s. I don't know if it's an actual remake or not. No. Oh, I'll have to look at that up later. Anyway.
TJ will get back to y'all on that.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
So, which brings us to Old Acquaintances, which is another
He
one.
forgot and never brought to mind.
Yeah, just like the New Year's song. But this was another one that I didn't much care for, even though it has to do with witches. There were some kind of funny moments in their arguments and stuff like that, and them battling it out. But I just don't think it was as good an episode as it could have been. But I want to hear what TJ thinks of it. He may like it better than I do.
It's fine. It's two women, and it's very. I mean, it starts off in the present, and then it goes back into the past, and then it comes back to the present. It's interesting idea. I don't know if it's not that it's about witches, but it's not like there's magic in it, but it's not magical. The stuff that happens that is it's fine. I think it's more like it would be a nice if they did this should be on like a Broadway play type of thing, because it's like there's only two actors doing a scene together. I mean, I could see if you can get this get the transcript of this, and maybe if you're an actor or something like that, if you had 2 women actors, I think this would be good for that kind of thing. I mean, but as an episode of Tales from the Darkside, I think it falls a little flat of being that exciting. It does have Curtains fans. It has Linda Thorson from Curtains in it.
Yep, sure does.
And she's very British, and she's the same. She's a good actor too, but so it's about these 2 witches who they come back to the same spot every year for the last. It's been hundreds of years. I guess maybe it's 100 years. I don't know. So they share this magical talisman, and each year they're supposed to trade off. Well, Mary, who's the older witch, has had a terrible year. Her familiar has been killed. Her house was in a storm, was messed up. She had to spend money she didn't have to fix it up, and now she's poor, and she's had a terrible year. And meanwhile, we have second witch, the younger Elizabeth, played by Linda Thorson, who comes in and is like, I've had a wonderful year. I'm rich, and she's all dressed up, and she's got a fur hat on, a nice jacket, and she's talking about her house, which she's named. So when you name your house, you know you have a lot of money. And Mary's like, I've had a terrible year. You can tell they're not really great friends.
Right.
Elizabeth is sort of playing it off that she's a little bit above Mary, and that Mary's sort of like the least. I don't know if couth has anything to do with it, but she thinks she's better than Mary, and you can tell that her concerns are really not. She's not really concerned. You can tell she's just playing the acting concerned. Well, Mary wants the necklace now, and Elizabeth's like, no, it has to be exactly on whatever. There's the moons and the Jupiter or whatever. One of those things where everything has to be aligned. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, I still have 2 weeks. And she's like, no, I want it now. You're trying to keep it from me. And then we have a flashback to how this happened. And Mary was in jail for witchcraft back in the witchcraft days. There's mention of Boston, so it's probably a Salem type of situation. And Elizabeth is thrown into the cell with her, and Elizabeth's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just a regular. She doesn't say this, but I'm just a regular, beautiful, innocent woman. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
They should have made a comedy. That would have been funnier if they had done that. But and she's like, I've been here with this witch, and she's like, all these terrible things have happened to me, and we find out all these terrible things that were happening to Elizabeth were because of Mary. I guess Mary was sort of kind of jealous of Elizabeth, who was just kind of going around and using her looks and her feminine wiles to get things she wanted, and Mary's just sick of that. So Mary is like, well, screw you. One of us or both of us are going to die here. So it's basically, you might get out of this, but I'm definitely going to be, hung or whatever they do, hung or drowned or whatever the number of things you want to do to kill a supposed witch.
Or burn, drown, hung. I mean, yeah, you're right. Any number of things that they could do to them.
Yeah. So, anyway, did I write this anything down for this episode? No, I didn't. So, yeah, and Mary has her talisman there, and Elizabeth basically tries to steal it from her, and she takes it back, and she basically tries to kill Elizabeth. Well, she thinks she kills Elizabeth, but she tries to drown Elizabeth in the water. and like the whatever they give the prisoners or whatever, the bucket of water or whatever to give them drinks or whatever. So she drowns her, and she wakes up from the dead, where she basically says, I saw that I don't know if the devil or maybe a something connected to the devil, where basically it's like the one who gives the witches their power, and she's like, oh, I saw this person and that person and some other women, and they were all, I guess they're all witches, and like Mary recognizes the names because I'm guessing they're all part of the coven or whatever.
Right.
And Elizabeth's like, he offered me, if basically if I have sex with him or whatever, and he'll give me, he'll give me power, and he'll give me all these things, and it's sort of like, I guess Mary's John too, so it's like
right.
Mary's sort of jealous now that, oh, he's hitting on you too. Oh well, this demon just has no morals whatsoever. Which I'm like, she's shocked about that, I guess.
Right.
But she's like, but I turned him down. But he told me how to use the power of this amulet, and he even though it was Mary's to begin with, it's now Elizabeth's, because she said he attached it to me, so now it's mine. And Mary's like, I'm not going to let you have this. It's mine to begin with, and he had no right to give it to you. So Linda's like, okay, let's share the power. So and then they come up with every year they'll trade off, and then we come back to the present, and more of them kind of fighting, and then it goes into what the spoiler is for the twist of the end of the episode.
Right. So I'll say again that I like the idea of having witches and Tales from the Dark Side episodes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I am like TJ that this one seemed to fall a little flat. It just really didn't capture my interest. It was another one of those that I could find myself zoning out during it. And it basically, the whole story is these two witches bickering over a stupid amulet.
Yeah.
And it could have been done as a play, just a one room play, because it basically maybe takes place in a couple of locations. I mean, it goes back in the past and tells how they met and all that. And then you have the more modern location where they're actually bickering over the amulet. And I just feel like they could have done so much more with the episode if, I don't want to say tried a little bit harder, but maybe if it was written differently or something like that, that it could have been better. But just, in all honesty, not one of my favorite episodes of the series. So I'm going to, since I didn't have a whole lot to say about it, I'm going to turn it back over to TJ for the twist.
It's also very melodramatic, so it's not enthralling, really. It's like, it's not hard to get through, but it's like you were talking about longer episodes. I'm like, it should have just been them, like, cut the episode in half. There's not enough going on, except for them. I mean, the one who plays Mary, Sally Grace, I mean, when she gets into full witch mode, she's really chewing up the scenery. And even Linda as Elizabeth is very, like, she's the opposite, but she's also eating up the scenery a little bit too. But I think she's a little bit more centered about it, and she's not. They should both be kind of crazy. I don't think I don't know. It's just the things about it that didn't work. But anyway, the twist is, basically Elizabeth was doing the same thing that Mary did to her. So she was. Because she basically, they have a fight, which even the fight wasn't that exciting. They have like a magical fight, and Elizabeth wins turns Mary into a cat,
Yeah.
and and she's like, oh, she's grabbing the cat, and she's about to sneeze.
Right.
It didn't come fast enough. Okay, it didn't go. Don't you hate sneezes that are like they're right there and they won't come out?
Yes, that happens to me just all the time. And then right after that, I'll usually let out a great big sneeze. Um,
Yeah.
Usually after I think I'm not going to. Um,
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
what I was looking at, I was trying to find that episode that Dirk was talking about because I thought that this. Well, let me just read what he says. He says, have y'all covered the witch episode where a modern day woman goes back in time and they accuse her of being a witch? I vaguely remember that one. Now, I was thinking that was Twilight Zone from the 80s. But then I was looking at the list of episodes as TJ was talking about the twist for this one, and I can't find
I
it.
know what he's talking about. I just can't remember if it was it Monsters or was it Tales? I don't think it was Tales from the Darkside. It might have been Monsters, or it could have been Twilight Zone.
I could have sworn it was Twilight Zone.
But it's about this woman who gets thrown in the past, and she's accused of being a witch, but she's not really a witch, and then she sort of gets trapped.
Yep.
Like she's almost able to go back to the present, but she gets trapped in the past, and then she's at the. I remember the end that she's like in the stockade about ready to be executed for being a witch. I remember that. I just can't remember. It seemed like it was a Twilight Zone or a Monsters episode. I can't remember though.
Yeah, I just don't know why I can't. I don't think I'm going through these too quickly. That's gonna bother me if I can't.
Well, there is a witch episode of Monsters with Linda Blair, but that's not the one he's talking about.
Yeah, no.
Because she dresses like a pilgrim because she's here's the. I remember it. She gets thrown into the past, and there's this girl who is being abused by her father because it's like one of those, back when the women the men kind of controlled the women and whatever, and he sort of I think the dad was a pastor or whatever, and
yeah,
and it was about there were witches around, and this girl gets accused of being a witch, and she's trying to save the daughter from being abused by the father, so she tries to take her into the present with her because she gets to go. She somehow, I forget what happens in the episode or whatever it was, but there's a time travel thing, and she's like, we're going to go to time travel together, and I'm going to get away from your abusive father, but it ends up the girl gets thrown through the portal or whatever, and then the girl from the future gets stuck in the past, and then she gets in the stockades or whatever, and they're going to kill her for being a witch, and meanwhile the daughter is trapped in the present, and she's like scared because obviously she's out of her place and whatever. But yeah, I wish now I'm gonna find out what the hell this is from.
Yeah, it's gonna totally drive me nuts if I can't. I could have sworn that it was Twilight.
Damn you, Dirk.
Yeah, Dirk, you're making us like you're taxing our brains here.
We're really flying through these episodes.
I mean, could it be possible that they missed an episode in these episode breakdowns?
Anyway, she turns Mary into a cat, and she takes Mary home to her mansion with her to be her cat. And she's like, "You're not going to scratch me, are you?"
Yes.
But anyway, that episode. No, damn you with this time travel, because you can't find these.
I'm gonna look one more time and try to find it.
I mean, I don't remember a monster in it, so it might not have been in Monsters, but no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Yeah, if I remember the actress who's the one from the present, her face is very distinctive. If I knew who she was, I would be able to look it up. But And it's an actress who's been in things too. That's not
Yes,
helping. But
yes, yes,
see, we know what it is. We just can't we know what it's from.
yeah. I may have to get back with Dirk on that, because I'm going to actually pull out my Twilight Zone episodes and actually look on those, um, because I got a funny feeling that they must have left something out, because it just doesn't.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I could spend all night trying to trying to find that. Uh, Turk says, "Sorry, guess I mixed it up." Uh,
It was definitely that time period, like 70s. Yeah, you see, Derek, you remember it, but yeah, I wish we knew what show it was on, damn it. Because I remember it distinctly. So, and it was that time period.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not. No, it wouldn't be Friday the 13th the series because I don't. There was no Mickey and.
No, and I just watched that episode and I'm like, it, I'm almost sure. I'm about 98, 99% sure it was Twilight Zone from the 80s, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel better when I actually find that out. Um, but Dark, I'll get back with you on that unless TJ finds information about it before I do. But I'm going to move on to the next episode, which is the Social Climber,
Yes.
with good old. Let's see, is it Richard
Robert Romanus
or Robert Romanus? I always get the two
from
confused.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the one from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Um, I like this one. This
This
one,
one's a good one. This one reminds me of it's going to spoil the. This is a Twilight Zone episode. Dead Man's Shoes, which
yeah,
reminds me of this episode, which they remade in the '80s. Dead Woman's Shoes.
yes, they did. Um, which is why you should never put on shoes meant for somebody else. If
Yeah,
there's
this is a
anything,
different ending to that one. But yeah.
if there's anything these episodes have taught us over the years is don't mess with other people's shoes or don't mess with shoes meant for someone else. Um, so this also has oh gosh, what is her name? Gosh.
Talia Balsam
Yeah, Talia Balsam, who
from
was
the
also
Kindred.
she was in the Kindred, but she was also in Crawl Space with Klaus Kinski.
Oh, okay, yep. And she was on Mad Men, the
Oh,
series Mad Men.
okay. See, I think that was another series that I didn't really get into and watch.
Ah,
So I'm going to let TJ talk about it first, and then I'll fill in a few things, and then we'll talk about the twist.
so it's about well, there's a shoemaker, Anthony, and he's a cobbler basically. He's not the leprechaun, but he makes shoes,
Right.
he makes shoes for a living. Um, Played by Albert Haig, who he was on that series Fame in the '80s, and he did the movie. He was like the old professor, and he was in a lot of stuff. He actually escaped. Um, he was almost brought into Hitler's youth group thing back in the pre, or I guess during the whole World War II crap.
Mm-hmm.
Where his family it got him out of Germany right before he became got stuck in the whole Nazi whatever. He was actually Jewish, but he changed his religion so he could get away from the persecution of being in Germany and being Jewish, and so I think as good as I think the episode is, I think his life sounds more exciting than than the episode. Anyway, Anthony owns this place, and he's a very nice guy, and he makes sure the right people have the right shoes. That's his goal in his business, and he's got a nice business. He's got a wife. He's got a nice place. Whatever. And Rob engaged to marry Gail, the local girl who works at the local diner or whatever across the street. They're engaged to be married. Anthony's making her shoes for her, and Rob's his apprentice, and Rob doesn't want to make shoes for his career, and he's has aspirations to be something bigger.
Right.
Though, he's getting married pretty young, and he's a cobbler and apprentice, and his wife works in the bakery. I mean, he makes a comment about her saving $75, and it's like, well, what's that? That's going to buy you $750, and what's that going to buy you? A window? You're not going to be able to buy a house to live in.
He's kind of, he's not a bad or evil character, but he just
wants more out of life than he has at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. But he doesn't, isn't there some point where Anthony tells him basically you got to work for what you want? You can't just get it automatically.
Yeah. He does that later when we're really enthralled with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So and then this local actress comes in who's hit it big on stage and screen, and Anthony's making her shoes, and like, oh yeah, I remember her, because she comes in all the time, and she's like, oh, his picture's up there, and he sort of has that thing where he's helped a lot of people out. So there's people in the town, or I guess we're more in a city area than it just happens to be in a small little shop he has making shoes. Which that makes you think a little bit like, how does he have such a good living? I mean, he's not rich and whatever, but he's well off, I guess, or he's not struggling. Let's say that. Anyway, and a weird thing is when he's doing the shoes, he has a special box with these sort of gold-looking nails. And he puts one into every shoe, and he sort of whispers into as he's nailing them, like, for good luck. I'm like, okay, that doesn't seem too weird. So one night, he's working a little late. Anthony leaves for the day, and Rob decides to try on a pair of shoes that are in this glass case where it's like his wife's shoes and a couple other pairs of shoes. So he puts on these nice, really nice, fancy pair of shoes. Rob does, and all of a sudden, magically, he has a suit on, and he looks very all of a sudden he looks very well-to-do and whatever, and he kind of goes off into the night, and then we find that the next day he's at a party, and he met like the mayor, and he met some celebrities, and he's telling the actress Laura, and he's like, hey, and I didn't see you there. Like, oh, she's like, oh, I'm so busy, like I can't go to a lot of parties, and he's like kind of like. He's like, hey, I've been to some parties, and I met some nice people. I met some famous people, and it's like he's sort of being a little douchey about it. But
yeah, and she's kind of like, well, good for you. I need to talk to Anthony.
Because she's sort of meeting him for the first time, and he's sort of coming on a little heavy, and but then like she sort of spends some time there, and the girlfriend comes in, and like, oh, you're getting married. Oh, that's cool. That's nice, and blah blah blah. Meanwhile, he's still like, he's not. I guess he's not hitting on her, but he's like trying to show, hey, I've been doing some stuff, and
doesn't Gail mention something about getting a really big tip? And
yeah, she comes in, and I had a $2 tip, and he's sort of embarrassed that in front of his famous friend that she's talking about a $2 tip, and he's sort of mean about it, and they sort of like. Gail sort of like feels kind of down. She's not mad, but she's sort of sad that he kind of dismissed her because she's like, I was really excited. I came over here to tell you I was really excited, and he's like, I'm sorry, and I love you and blah blah blah. And like you understand him sort of like wanting to be more than he is, and but then it's like don't make her feel bad because you're not where you think you want to be. And that comes in later in the episode also, where with he's telling that to Anthony, where he's like, so, but this isn't the twist, but this is part of the thing where Anthony has some magical luck that he infuses with these shoes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really specifically said, but it's generalized what's going on, and we find out that, or Anthony finds out that Rob has been wearing these shoes and sort of going out and living these people's lives. That's one thing I didn't figure out. Is he being the people whose shoes he's wearing, or is he just has this aura because he's wearing the shoes? It's giving him this confidence because I don't think he's necessarily becoming these people like physically, like because his suit's different, but
I got a
or is he?
feeling.
I don't know.
I got a feeling from it. How many of you guys have seen Quantum Leap, like the original Quantum Leap episodes? I love those. I sort of felt like it was like a Quantum Leap thing, but he wasn't going anywhere to help people, or he wasn't changing his appearance or becoming somebody else in order to help people. He was trying to help himself. That's all he was trying to do. He was trying to get ahead. Whereas the character in Quantum Leap he wanted to get off that track of leaping into different time periods and stuff. And this character in Tales from the Darkside was not leaping into other times, but I did get the feeling that he was leaping into other lives or getting transported into other lives, even for a short time.
Yeah, because we don't see it from that perspective. So we don't see it like I think the Twilight Zone reference I was making earlier. I think you actually see these characters sort of in the situations, but they're not just talking about what just happened. So, but this one leaves it more up to like, all right, you try to figure out what exactly happened. But
right. So yeah, I think that TJ described this episode very, very well. So I'm not going to interject too much, and then I'm going to let him talk about the twist to it. But I love the character of Anthony. He's such a sweet older man character that really seems to care about everybody that comes into his shop, and he makes friends with anybody and everybody. So it doesn't matter what your status is with Anthony. I mean, you could be a homeless person that came in off the street to his shop, and he would treat you like a friend that he's known for 10 years or more. And I really like that kind of character in an episode. I think it's good to have those kind of characters. We don't see a lot of that even in these older shows. And I feel like that actually, and people might disagree with me, I feel like shows that are out now, whether they be a sitcom or whatever, I just don't feel like we have those characters anymore. And it kind of makes me sad, and I feel like something's kind of missing a little bit from our television entertainment, especially. You have a few of these characters in movies today, but even it's not as much in movies as it used to be. So it's good to go back and watch an older episode like this one where you can say, yeah, that's a genuine character. That's a person, an actor playing a genuine character that we can believe in, that we could trust. And he's not going to turn around and stab you in the back. He's just too good of a guy to do that. Now, some of the other characters in the episode they're normal characters, and like TJ said, uh, Robert Romance's character does act kind of douchey at certain points, even towards Gail, who's his fiance, and but you can still tell within the fabric of this story that they have a good relationship, even
Mm.
though there's kind of a little push and pull there at certain points. So I really like the episode. Um, the ending is a bummer. The twist is a bummer, um, which I'm going to turn back over to TJ to reveal to you.
So yeah, he's been putting on the shoes and having these fun times and sort of alienating the people who care about him as he is, not what he could be. And Anthony's like, don't wear these shoes anymore. Don't go in my back room. Don't, it's dangerous for you to play with stuff like this, basically. And sorry, I was reading something on the corner of my eye. I go, and so Anthony's like, okay, like I said earlier, he's like, you shouldn't you shouldn't be wearing these shoes of other people because certain people have certain lives and certain things happen to certain people, and not every shoe should go to the,
Right.
not every shoe fits, basically. So he's like, okay, he kind of like, and this is, you believe that he's repenting. It's not like one of those where it's like, oh, he can tell he's just kind of like placating the other guy. I'm like, he actually seems sincere. He's like, all right, I won't do this anymore. And he starts kidding with Anthony and he makes a joke and whatever. And he's like, no, I know I won't put on the shoes again. And I understand, and I'm getting married soon and all that stuff. So it's another day, and a woman comes in to pick up a pair of shoes for, he's like, somebody's gonna come in and pick up a pair of shoes for this guy, and he's like, oh, this rich guy or whatever the guy owns, whatever. I don't know what the guy, I can't remember what he owned. So, and Rob's like, makes a joke about it and whatever, and then it's the next day, or is it later that day? I think it's later, or it's the same day, or whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. So a woman comes in, it's like, oh, I'm picking up the shoes for the guy that they had mentioned before, and we hear this like commotion or explosion or whatever in the back, and we go, and she's like, he's like, oh, you're here to pick up the shoes for blah 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 because he's having a special, I don't know, has a special night or whatever, and she's like, oh, haven't you heard? And he's like, heard what? Oh, he died last night or whatever. And then we hear the commotion in the back, and then we hear a noise, and we go back, and Rob's there laying there dead with his shoes kind of smoking because he had tried on the shoes of a dead man, and like he was he was becoming these other people. I guess he kind of was becoming the other people, and like the dead person, he is now dead.
Yep. Exactly.
Like, that's a twist. Now, I wasn't as upset about this twist as I was about the Medusa one, but this one, it's you kind of see where it was leading. I thought it would be more, even though I kind of knew how the episode ended, I thought it would be more like the Twilight Zone episode where it'd be,
right.
He'd have some kind of, he'd get into trouble somehow because of wearing someone else's shoes, whether he was arrested for murder or whatever, but to actually die, that's a big kind of like, that's a good shock ending, I think.
Yeah.
That's very easy comics too.
Yeah. Shock and slightly bummed me out too. Which brings us to another episode I'm not too fond of. And that's the swap. And I think part of the reason why I don't care for this episode is because you have to look at that old dude with the gross on his face for so long in this episode.
By the way, I found that episode with the with the witch.
Awesome.
It's season 4 called The Apprentice.
The Apprentice.
So Dirk, that's the episode.
Okay. So was it Twilight Zone or was
No,
it
it's Darkside.
Darkside?
It's the 13th episode in the 4th season, which we'll probably get to in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Which Dirk better be here for that episode.
Yes, Dirk, because you drove us crazy trying to find that, and TJ found it.
I have a headache now.
So it was Tales from the Dark Side.
Yep.
We're going to be covering that episode upcoming, so you did not miss it, Dirk.
The swap.
Yeah, so I'm going to say take it away, TJ, on the swap.
And it's not about what you do when you want another wife. You don't swap.
And there's no wife swapping going.
Yeah, there's no throwing the keys in the bowl and picking the random key and then going. Anyway, let's get off that subject. Anyway, it's about Annabelle and Bubba, who are not the happiest couple because he's sort of deformed and got pus all over him and welts and pimples, and he's like I guess he's a Louisiana. I guess a Louisiana type of
I think so.
One of those bayou type dudes. He probably knows the Swamp Thing personally. Annabelle's sort of the beautiful wife, and he's sort of this deformed guy, and she's only with him for his money type of situation. And they have the sort of the assistant, or he's the fix-it dude who sort of this handsome young guy who Bubba has hired to kind of fix things around the place, and that Annabelle sort of has shining to.
Right.
And so Annabelle wants to kill Bubba because now they have to have. That's another thing. It's not like one of those things where she's just stringing him along and like she actually has to have sex with Bubba because that's sort of the deal. She has to have intimacy with him, or there wouldn't have been a marriage because he may be deformed, but he ain't stupid. Yeah. So Annabelle and Claude have this decide they're gonna kill Bubba for his money.
Mm-hmm.
And Bubba has this sort of this lawyer who's another bayou kind of like this kind of chunky, goofy sort of weird guy who has this weird laugh and whatever, and he's a judge, but he's a lawyer. It's this weird dynamic that Bubba sort of has on retainer for whatever whim he desires. Also, he seems to change the parameters of their marriage a lot. So he'll add things because he wants her to do more. Whatever he wants him. I'm gonna say he wants her to do more things to him, but that's kind of.
You have to be real careful saying stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyway, also Bubba has a fixation on his mother, who's passed away because he has a photo of her, which I realized is a photo. It's him dressed as his mother, so it's one of those things where the mother looks awfully like her son because in the photo it's actually him dressed as her.
Yep.
Did you notice that when you?
Yeah, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, she sort of looks like it was a baby Jane with the red lipstick and the curls. It's just I was like, this is very baby Jane looking. Anyway, I'm guessing maybe the guy was a drag queen in his real life, or I don't know, because he's never dressed as his mother in the episode, which I thought would have been hilarious.
Oh yeah. They should have had like a flashback of his mother talking or something and had him dressed like her. So
yeah, and they basically kill him. But before he died, he put another stipulation in his will, and he's like, as they're trying to kill, they figure out a way to kill him, which won't be traced back to them. So they poison him, and they basically get this big funnel, and they stick it in his mouth, and they pour the I forget what they put, what the poison was.
Yeah, I forget.
Um,
It was.
but anyway, so they're basically pouring it into his mouth, and they kill him, and get them. You know, she gets the inheritance. So she's not sure what the stipulation was, and the dude comes, the lawyer dude or whatever, the judge lawyer dude comes and says, he wants you to marry Claude because he loved you so much, and he knew you had a thing for this guy, and he wants you to be happy. So you get to be rich with the farmhand, I keep saying farmhand, but it's not a farm.
I guess he's like supposedly the sexy handyman.
Yeah, handyman. That's what he is. He's a handyman. He's played by James Wellick. He was in a bunch of soap operas, and he was in. I remember him in Steel Magnolias. I remember he was in that movie.
Oh yeah.
He played the young. He's like the young cousin of who's the one that played Olivia Dukakis's family?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ones that look like they were made out of cream cheese. But yeah, he did soap operas too. Anyway, yeah, he's one of those attractive, young-looking guys. Like, I hate those guys. Anyway, so yeah, so that's pre-spoiler twist.
Again, this is not one of my favorite episodes, and I don't, I hate to talk about people's looks, is a reason why I don't like an episode, but this guy was so gross looking. I mean, I know
that's the point, though.
Yeah, you had to have the guy look like that for the whole episode to be able to work.
And I think it's also like he's not just he's disgusting to a point where she's a money grubbing hoe who just wants his money, but
right.
He's gross, but then again, yeah, she gets what she gets. She gets what she deserves. But maybe I'm sticking up for her too much. Screw her.
Forget about her. She's wanting to mess around with the handyman.
Oh, but the actress who plays her, I looked her up. She did nothing else, but she is now a real estate a realtor now. She has like a real estate company that she owns.
A lot of actors and actresses went into real estate, even people that were in movies. It's kind of strange. It's like, I'm going to make a second career, and it's going to be real estate.
Well, I can see it if you did a bunch of like, you may not have been the star, but you were in a lot of movies and TV shows and whatever, and you met celebrities, so you would get sort of like, as you worked in real estate, you'd have these connections.
Oh yeah.
So you would be able to. You weren't selling like a house that was like $30,000. You'd be selling like houses that were tens of millions of dollars because they were celebrities' houses or people that knew celebrities or rich people. So that makes sense. Like that's a smart thing, I'd say.
Right. So I just at the end of the day, I just couldn't get past the grossness, the disgusting part of this guy. And maybe I need to, wait a little bit and give it another try. But I'm just imagining how that guy looked in the episodes as I'm talking about it now. And it's just, but this is sort of like an EC Comics type of feel to this one. And on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to TJ so he can share the twist with you guys.
Oh, and I'm going to talk about the EC comic relation after we're done with this, okay. Or when we're done with the twist. So, so he's dead. She has the money. She's got the good-looking husband now, who he was knocked in the head, so he had a bandage for a while, and they took the bandage off, and he sort of had like this little wart on the top of his head. And as things are progressing, he's starting to get more and more warts. And the twist was that it's called the switch. Oh, that's not called a switch. It's called
The swap.
It's called a swap because it's obviously they have to set it in Louisiana and the Bayou and whatever because we got to throw some voodoo in here, obviously. So he has some kind of because that's what's mentioned by the lawyer judge dude is like he was messing around with some voodoo because he had the plan to switch bodies with the handyman. That's why he hired the good-looking handyman.
Yeah.
Because he knew that what was going to happen with the whole situation, with the wife and him and all that. And so he switches bodies, and unfortunately, all the warts and pustules and whatever, they come along with the body switching.
Yeah, it carries over.
Yeah, and he starts talking in the guy's voice, and he's sort of like, "Now you have me, baby," and he's like looming over her, and it's like, it's a good-looking guy, but now he's all gross and everything. Why I said the switch was because it reminds me of that episode of Tales from the Crypt, The Switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's kind of the same kind of story where it's not the same. It's the same idea of switching bodies, and it's a rich guy and pretending that it's got a lot of resemblance to that episode in that EC comic. So I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they were influenced by that at least. But.
Right. So, Wes says Dana Lynn is streaming again. Yes, I am, but I have a special guest on here.
This is the pre-scheduled one. This isn't.
Also TJ Dark.
You're welcome.
Dirk says sounds similar to the Charlie Daniels song, "The Legend of Woolly Swamp." Wes, actually, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really asked TJ for 100% sure if he's going to join me on the next retrospective, but I was thinking about doing monsters next because somebody had mentioned that might be a good bookend kind of thing to the Tales from the Darkside. But
this is the show, basically, right? So
yeah. But I would like to do Erie, Indiana at some point. I probably won't do the X-Files because Uncle Bill is pretty much covering that. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes with that. And I'm more, I like the X-Files, but I'm more well-versed in this stuff, in the Tales from the Darkside, Twilight Zone from the 80s, monsters, stuff like that, than I am the X-Files, sadly. So
I watched them all.
Dirk says we got the voodoo, the hoodoo, and drunk night tattoos. I hope I never get any tattoos while I'm drunk.
By the way, now that he mentioned CK mentioned Erie, Indiana, I keep thinking of that song, Gary, Indiana, Gary. Now it's stuck in my head. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Wes. So we've got 2 more episodes to cover, and this is another kind of comedic episode. Let the games begin. And I like this one, but I want to hear what TJ thinks about this one.
I thought it's another cute one. I don't want to keep using cute meaning that I don't like it. I like this episode. I mean, like I said, I just rewatched this. I rewatched them all. I rewatched them all at 1.5 speed so I could get through them faster. So a couple times I had to go back. I'm like, because what did they just say? Because they talked too fast. Anyway, I like it. This is a cute episode. So it's about, this is easy one. An angel and a devil fight over this guy's soul. Mm-hmm. And this is I was gonna say this guy isn't a good guy or a bad guy. He's sort of this guy dies. This guy's on what the hell is his name? Harry Carson is on a vacation. It's his class reunion.
Yep.
And he's in a whole. He's in a hotel, but it seems like it's one of those hotels with a big round bed with the animal print sheets and stuff like that. I'm like, is this a hooker hotel or is this like a regular hotel that's just kind of seedy?
Or, it's kind of, some people might want to get a room like that for their honeymoon or something,
Yeah, it's weird. It's got a bellhop, and so it's not a cheap hotel, let's say, but it looks cheap as far as the way they decorated it. But that's neither here nor there to the story. And he has a heart problem. He basically dies, and the devil and an angel make a deal to fight over his soul, and the devil is a woman who's going to pretend to be he's married. He's ex-wife. I forget. Whatever. I think it's his wife. The devil's going to pretend to be his sister-in-law, who he's been hitting on before, which is like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
And the angel is going to be his buddy, one of his best friends, who supposedly wasn't there because he hates reunions, but he's going to pretend to be his.
I'm trying to remember what.
I forget his name. What is his friend's name too? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
I'm trying to think of his name. Did I write it down? I don't remember now. Fire. Damn it. Because on the IMDb it just says devil and angel and it doesn't say their actual names.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't want to play the episode.
Yeah. By the way, the angel is played by David Groh, who, I mean, this is a long chance that someone would remember this show. He was on the show Rhoda, which was a spinoff of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and he played Rhoda's husband for like a bunch of seasons.
Aldo, that was his friend's name.
Okay. And in Battlestar Galactica, he was in a lot of shit. Okay. I could have sworn I wrote that down. So anyway, they make a deal. Yeah, I even wrote it down. Here we go. Aldo. Duh. Okay. Well, they make a deal where whoever gets him out of the room first gets his soul.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries hitting on him and getting him. She wants to take him out dancing, and she's like, "Let's go out and dance to try to get him out of the hotel."
I love the way she does it too. She says, "Let's go dancing," and she's really elaborate.
Yes, it's very over the top, but I think it works for this episode because it's like I said, like you said, it's a funny episode, and I think that's the whole point of it. So it works, I think. Mm-hmm. Aldo tries to convince him that he's going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And he got to get him out of this hotel because he can't stand in this hotel. He doesn't want to be here, and he'll feel better once he's out of the hotel. So he pretends that he's going to shoot himself. He pretends to hang himself. So anyway, the beginning where he's dead, and they're like, "Well, we got to bring him back to life." So the devil, she gets a remote control and opens it up. And basically uses it to jumpstart his heart. And she's like, I've always wanted to hotwire one of these things. And I like the way she plays it because she plays it like when she's being sexy, but when she's like the devil, she's like she's not playing like a man, but she's very like, I'm going to get him and he's going to be mine. And like, because the angel's playing it like he's the nice guy. So he's playing it, so they're doing the opposite roles, which I like the idea of that because it could have been two guys, but the fact that one's a man and one's a woman and the woman's a devil, I think really works for the comedy. And And like she's doing all the sexy things to get him out of there, which the devil would do. The angel wouldn't be doing that. So the angel pretended to kill himself. That might be a little suspect as far as that. But then again, that comes up later about what we think about people. Anyway, so yeah, they're trying every which way to get him out, and they like pretend that they use it because they have abilities because they're spirits or whatever. They have the ability, so they pretend they make it look like there's a fire, so he won't leave, and like you said, the go dancing and then the suicide, and then she pretends she sprains her ankle, and she's got to get out of there to take care of herself. And there's a part where he locks himself in the bathroom kind of to get away from the two of them, and she lights up a cigar and she starts smoking the cigar, and she's like, we got to figure out what we're going to do here.
Right.
Yeah, I think the twist comes up kind of, but it's the comedy of errors trying to get him out of the room.
And I really, really like this episode. It's a fun episode, quite a bit more lighthearted, even though the guy pretty much dies of a heart attack and they have to reanimate him in order to fight for his soul. But to use a remote control for a TV and
that was good. Yeah.
Reanimate him, that was genius, I thought. Because where else would you see the angel and the devil reanimating somebody using a remote control? I don't think I've ever seen that done in anything else.
And then the angel goes, only he is allowed to reactivate him.
Yes.
And then uses the power of the angels, and it says the hallelujah music and the bright light to try to raise him from the dead, which is, I think, another funny thing.
Yeah, I mean, this episode is just chock full of all kinds of fun and comedic elements. And we've dealt with episodes that are half comedic and half dark. We've dealt with episodes that are all dark, but I think this is probably the one and only episode up until this point that's been almost purely comedic. Even the way the guy dies, I mean, it's just.
Oh, when they resurrect him the first time, he burps when he comes back to life. I thought that was great.
Yeah, so this is obviously not an episode that's meant to bum you out or anything like that. You're supposed to have a good time with this episode.
Yeah.
And I think the audience certainly does. I mean, I did. It sounds like TJ did watching it again. So I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I do really, really like this episode. And I do think it's an extension over you've seen these scenes in movies. For instance, Animal House. There's a scene where and this is a little bit more risque, quite a bit more risque, but Animal House is rated R. Keep that in mind. Yeah. It's a rated R movie. But there is a scene where the angel is on one shoulder, a little version of the angel, and the devil's on the other. And the guy has got this drunk girl. She's passed out. And, it's funny, but it's way more adult than this is. This is a little bit safer. Like, it's safer for a family to watch together than to sit down and watch. You don't want to say, hey, let's all sit down, and you've got like, I don't know, 10 or 12-year-old kids, and then the parents and maybe some older siblings. You don't all want to sit down and watch Animal House necessarily, unless Animal House happens to be on TV. Where on
TBS, you can watch it on TBS.
yes, that would be the safer route. Even though I love Animal House, but that's another story for another day. But I think this is this episode is an extension of the little goodness, the little bitty angel and devil that show up on people's shoulders from time to time in movies. But I'm going to turn it back over to TJ for that little twist in this one.
Yeah. So there's also Harry has like the girl he wronged in school who's at the reunion, and she sends the bellhop to basically throw a bucket of water in his face is basically what it comes down to. And he's like, I gotta fix this between the two of us. Anyway, so the devil the angel's like, how about we just let him have his time with the girl and give him some extra time, and we'll call it even, and we'll just we'll let him live his life for much longer he has left.
Right.
I think there's some comment about he's got maybe 10 more years or whatever. I forget what the exact comment was or something like that. But she sort of reneges on that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, hey, didn't we have a deal? And she's like, yeah, but I'm the devil. I mean,
Yeah. What do you expect me to do here?
So they basically compromise. But I don't know if them compromising is a twist, or the twist is the devil and the angel fall in love.
Yeah. I certainly do.
And it's like, well, is this wrong? And this is the point. I figured that's exactly the point with the angel's a little bit more like, because like the angel hooking up with the devil doesn't sound like the thing that he would want. So, but I mean, that's basically they let him live and not collect the soul, and then they basically get together and fall in love. And actually, the funny thing is at the beginning of the thing when you first see them, they're in silhouettes, so you see the silhouettes of their bodies, but then he's got the wings, and then she's got the tail sticking up, and it's just like it doesn't move except when she kind of moves back and forth. So I'm wondering if they're just like wearing behind the curtain, they're wearing like just pieces of cardboard attached to them. It's not actual. But then. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, the devil has never been portrayed like this. Well,
there's Bedazzled, that movie Bedazzled.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Because even though she's the devil in this, there's still a little bit of an innocence to her. A girl that just likes to party. But I think she doesn't mean any harm, like any real harm to come to somebody.
But like I said, there's a silhouette at the beginning. So at the end, there's a silhouette, the same silhouette, but then they're kissing and and holding each other. And I was like, oh, that's cute. This is how I wish Medusa would have ended, with this ending.
Yes.
With them happily going off to wherever to travel or whatever.
So Dirk says that it makes sense that the devil is a woman.
Yeah.
What exactly are you saying there, Dirk? Oh, man. His wife must not be around when he's saying that. So that brings us to the last episode of this season, which is the enormous radio.
It does not end on a light note.
No, it does not. This is quite a bit darker episode. So you had that light, let the games begin episode. Now we're back in the doldrums. Now we're back in the dark side, really, this time. So I like this episode, but as TJ said, it does not end well. And it actually does not bode well for the main characters in this. So take it away, TJ.
So it's about this. It's set in the 50s, and so it's about this couple as their radio goes on the fritz. So they decide to buy a new one, and it's this giant radio, as the title says. And the woman says, "Oh, it's so big," and so I was rewatching it, and she goes, it's so big. And I was like, that's what she said. But then I was like, literally, that's what she said. uh, and her, and so anyway, and her husband's like, oh, and she's like, oh, we got this radio and it's huge. And they're like, it's just a radio, whatever. And the guy delivers it. It's a radio. This is what, this is what you're getting. I don't care. So we find out that the radio doesn't just get music and the weather. It gets people, and you can hear conversations in people's homes. And if you look at the dial says like Hawaii and Japan and India, and it's like that's not what a regular radio would have on it. It would just have numbers and stuff. It wouldn't have locations. So that's what it allows you to do. It allows you to tune into certain locations all over the world, basically. Mm-hmm. And they start. This is very now. If you think about it, it's very reality show and TikTok where people get. Or it might even be a commentary on how television is just people watching television all the time. But even for then, it was topical. It's even more now with binge watching and that kind of stuff where, and you get caught up in listening to it and wanting to hear it every day. A
little bit, you mentioned like social media type things. We're in a time period where people are all up in other people's business. And, that used to be a small town thing. If you were from a small town like I grew up in, everybody always was up in everybody else's business. Everybody knew exactly what everybody else was doing. And I always hated that when I got older and realized that that's what was going on. And that's one of the, I fell in love with Steve. That's why I moved to Louisville. But I always said growing up, I wanted to leave that small town and go to a bigger place where people didn't constantly know your business. But then when I got to Louisville, and I still love Steve, but now I wish we could get out of Louisville. Both of us together could get out of Louisville, and that's probably not going to happen until we both retire, unfortunately. But I just wanted to interject that there.
Oh, by the way, the wife is played by Christina Easterbrook. If you remember a couple of seasons, she was on American Horror Story. She was the realtor who brought, got them the house in the first episode, and she comes back in Hotel, and I think another season too. And she actually went to school with Meryl Streep for acting in Yale. So she's been around. She's been around for a while. Desperate Housewives, bunch of Spider-Man 2. She was in the original. Well, I can't remember which waves of the Spider-Mans she was in. She was in one of the Spider-Man 2s.
Right. They all get intertwined and mixed up and stuff.
Yeah, like Scream 2022 and then Scream 6. Like what?
Right.
5 Cream. That's what it is. It's 5 Cream. Yeah. Anyway, little bit note of the actor in the movie. The TV show. So yeah, and then like I said, they both kind of get engrossed with what's going on. Yeah, there's not much to say about the episode except it's the progression of how, like I said, they get more and more into listening to the radio and finding out what's going on in their neighbors or other far away or whatever. And
right.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where
it becomes an addiction is what it does. And that's where it parallels today's society too. Because like I said, everybody is all up in everybody else's business. And I'll give you
why are you up in my business? Anyway.
I'll give you a little bit of an example here. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's just, I never thought of YouTube and some of these other outlets for anything else other than, entertainment, either watching movies that are on there, watching television shows that might end up on YouTube, watching old interviews with people, or, just watching people doing like what me and TJ are doing tonight, talking about different things. That's all I ever thought of YouTube as. And then I got with Steve, and Steve starts showing me these videos where people are fighting and arguing over the internet with each other. And it's like, people, you don't even know each other. Why are you? It's like another level of bullying almost. But Steve is entertained by it. He thinks it's hilarious to watch these people go back and forth and turn on each other and stab each other in the back. And I think they all do it pretty much because they figure they're safe on the other side of a computer screen. But there's this one guy that Steve is watching now, Cyrex, or that's his screen name. I think his real name's Chance something. But anyway, there's another guy, Marty, Music Biz Marty, that has been harassing this guy, Cyrex, for a long time. And then finally, this guy, Marty, shows up in Cyrex's hometown where he lives. And Cyrex comes at him and tries to beat him up. And there's video of it um, that is being shown. I just wondered if anybody had heard of the Cyrex. I call it the saga of Cyrex. And then that other guy beat Cyrex up, and you can see it on camera. And I'm like, I told Steve, I said, number one, that guy, I mean, Marty, he has a right to go wherever he wants, I guess, in the world. But to purposely go where this guy is, he's been antagonizing this guy for a long time. He's been harassing him. He comes into the streams that Cyrex does. And I don't know why Cyrex doesn't just, either kick him out or get off the stream or do whatever. And why does he keep engaging with this guy? So it's kind of half his fault and half Marty's fault. But Steve was like, I don't know, Dana. He said, why do you even worry about it? I just laugh at it. I said, because really, it's not funny. It's not funny. This guy Cyrex obviously has some issues. You know, the guy looks like he's not in good health. I think, you know, Lord knows what he suffers from. What if this guy, when he had beat him up, had killed him by accident? Because the guy looks like you could knock him over with a feather. He's so skinny and gaunt. Um, and people just have no sense anymore. But I didn't mean to get totally off that. But this episode, just us talking about this episode, reminded me of that kind of stuff. Those people became so obsessed with hearing both their neighbors and other people in other countries and other states and all of that. It started out it was just their neighbors, because weren't they in an apartment, TJ?
Um, yeah, I think it's an apartment. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, because when the guy delivers, he doesn't come through the front door. He comes like through the hallway, kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So I think the same way, and Steve might disagree with me, the same way he's obsessed with the exploits of all these people on YouTube and other social media outlets. I think that's how these people did. They just could not stop listening. In the same way that some people can't stop watching, it's like a train wreck. And that's how Steve describes it. He says it's a train wreck. And I get where I just have to watch it to see how far it's going to go. And I think that's exactly what these people did in the enormous radio episode. At first the husband told the wife, don't be listening in, when I leave and go to work, don't be turning on that damn radio and, listening to our neighbors or anybody else. And she does it. She's obsessed. She cannot help herself. So I won't continue to go on and on about it, but I'm sure you guys are going to want to know the twist to the enormous radio, so I'm going to let TJ talk about that.
So they get fed up with the whole radio situation, and they're like, "Let's just get our regular radio back, and let's just stop listening to this stuff because it's affecting our lives, basically." Um, well, they finally get some music. There's no more listening, and then they start arguing about how she's not paying her household bills and she's been neglecting things, and they get into this big fight and accusing. Well, they're not accusing because these things have actually. They're basically telling each other off, and the twist is now everybody is listening to them because it shows people. It shows another radio, and then the person turning it up and hearing them and having their argument. So her listening and them listening to other people is now people listening to them, and that's the twist. And I don't think it sounded like they were going to have a happy end to their marriage at that point.
No, I think it was going to get to abuse level, is what.
or divorce, at least.
Or divorce, yeah. Which it probably would have been better if they got a divorce rather than.
There was the 50s, and you know what happened back in the 50s when the wife didn't do what the husband wanted. So.
Yep, unfortunately. So.
Movies. I'm just talking about TV.
So I wanted to bring Dirk's message.
Yeah, Dirk. Yeah.
Here. It's just a new level is all. This type of shit has been going on. He said, she said, till someone is dead. But it's worse because public humiliation will make people snap. And you're exactly right, Dirk. It is just a new level, but it's getting to a dangerous crescendo, I think. And I'm not trying to get on my soapbox and talk about this stuff, but it started out, people thought they were protected by arguing and fighting with people on the internet. But now people are actually starting to take it a step further and showing up at people's houses, showing up in their hometowns. And it's getting really dicey and really dangerous. I don't want some strange person that I don't even know showing up on my doorstep. You don't know what these people got in mind. So yeah, it's almost like a new level of stalking or harassment or whatever you want to call it. But I call it stalking if you're going to show up on somebody's doorstep and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm the person you've been fighting with over the internet for the last couple of years."
Yeah, that's weird. Don't do that.
And I see so much of that now.
Well, another thing too, it makes people defensive. Like comment sections, you can't even just explain something without sometimes people thinking you're being a bully. And instead of like, I'll see a message or whatever in a TikTok or whatever, and I'll respond and I'll say, this is my opinion and this is what I think, and then they'll start going, "Well, you're stupid and you don't know." And I'm like, I'm just explaining. Like I'll say, like someone will get something wrong, and I'll say, "Well," and I'll phrase it nicely. I won't just go. I just won't tell you were wrong. I will phrase it like, "Well, no, exactly. This is actually what happened," and I'll cite something. And also, you have a limited amount of characters in a lot of these things like Twitter and TikTok, so you can't really write a full thought. So you have to figure out how to do it and make it. And I'll do that, and people still kind of get like defensive, and I'm like, well, you can't have a discussion then. So don't even make a comment if you can't expect a criticism or
you can't.
Explanation.
Nobody can take any sort of criticism, even if it's constructive criticism, which is exactly what I think you just described, TJ, is constructive criticism.
Yeah.
You're not saying, "Hey, you're stupid because you didn't know this," but I'm just trying to help you out here and tell you, what the real story is behind something, or they may had something just a little bit wrong. Just like, I could have gotten really mad when you found out that it was a Tales from the Darkside episode that Dirk was talking about. But I didn't, because I was happy that we figured it out.
Yeah.
You know,
Also, we haven't watched the fourth season, so
exactly.
or at least not in the last 10 blah, blah years.
Exactly. But and I know Dirk wasn't mad, and so nobody got mad, and I just wonder why other people can't do that. Why are people so damn defensive anymore over
Or people like to be obnoxious. Like,
oh yeah,
not a comment I did, but I was reading a TikTok comment and someone abbreviated a word because, like I said, you have limited characters and they just wanted to get their message out. Someone corrected them on their abbreviation, and I was like, don't you know they abbreviated that because they didn't have enough, didn't feel like writing the whole word out, and like you were explaining that no, that's not how you spell the word. Like thank you for the grammar lesson, but
I see YouTube comments like that too, where they take pot shots at people. They get personal with it. Somebody will make one comment about a video, and then somebody else will come in under there and say, "Oh, you're just dumb. Why would you say something like that?" And then it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and nobody ever gets anywhere with it. Um, so I
yeah,
don't know why you can't, unless somebody just says something really horrendous or libelous or something like
yeah,
that.
it's knocking everything down.
I don't think there's really any reason to be snotty and get on there and just start a fight over things. Just let bygones be bygones and let people, if they don't like a movie or they do like a movie, just, you can say, okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, but you don't have to get nasty and you don't have to make it a personal thing. And I think that's what people do. They just make it too personal.
Or sometimes before you hit send, think, do I really want to add this, or do I really want to make this comment?
Yeah.
and and then because if you thinking there's something wrong with it, maybe you shouldn't type it and put it into the comments.
I think that's part of the problem though, TJ, that these people don't realize they have no conception that they uh, should not say these things. Um, my husband's like that. I mean, and again, I love Steve, but his whole family is like that. Whatever is in their brain comes right out of their mouth. And my family was never like that. And I was just shocked at, I would, like, when I first met Steve's mom, which I love my mother in law, I do. I don't want anybody to think I hate her because I don't. But when Steve and I were dating and I would, make things to take to her house for holidays or whatever, if I do that at my parents' house, my mom's like, "Oh, that's nice, Dana, but you shouldn't have worked so hard on it," and blah, blah, blah. There for a while, every time I brought something to Steve's mom's house, she would say, "Oh, I don't like that." Or I don't like it fixed that way. I like it the way I do it or whatever. And I told Steve finally, I said, that kind of hurt my feelings because it wasn't like she said it one time and just let it go. I said, every time I bring something, even if I got something for Steve, like one time I got him one of those big cookies and I wrote happy birthday, Steve on it and icing. And Steve loved it, of course. But he brought part of it to his mom's house and he was just nibbling on it. Uh, and she said, I don't like cookies. And it's just like, where does this stuff come from? I don't know. Um, but Steve told her a couple of times, he said, Mom, he said, you really hurt Dana's feelings. And she's like, well, I didn't mean anything by it. So get a lot of that too. But um, so I think I blabbed on long enough about different things and we got totally off topic, but you do that sometimes. But it is 11:08 now and Dana's going to have to go to beddy bye soon. I don't go to bed as early as Steve does, but I still got to go and get some sleep. And I also got to check on my old man Brandon to see how he's doing.
Yeah.
Make sure he's doing okay and hasn't had any more accidents. I hope I don't go into the living room and find a dog poop explosion, which will be unfortunate, but I'll just clean it up and go on.
Well, now that it's getting darker later, we can use the try to enjoy the daylight since we have a little bit more of it now.
Exactly.
Well, the ending credits this is where my dirty mind is. Thinking of the ending credits in the dialogue. The Darkside is always there, waiting for us to enter, waiting to enter us.
Oh my gosh, TJ, you're giving me like visions that I don't need.
I was gonna bring it up the first stream, but I was like, maybe I should save it for later.
I guess it's just one of those things that you don't really think about unless you have a little bit of time to.
And things were more innocent back in 1985. Before
I think they were
too. People didn't take stuff like that and think about the.
Dirk found that hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know when that's what she said was invented, but I think it was like maybe the early 90s. It was after that.
Oh man, I'm gonna look at Tales from the Darkside in a whole new light now.
Just the ending, the credits.
Just the ending credits. Oh man. Okay, so I want to thank first of all TJ for being my co-host.
Thank you very much.
Again, we will return, barring anything going on, next Wednesday with the first part of the final season, the 4th season of Tales from the Darkside. And eventually, Dark's going to get to hear us talk about The Apprentice.
Yes, now that we remembered what episode it was, and it's to Tales from the Darkside.
And I also want to thank everybody that was in the chat tonight. I think although there hasn't been a whole lot of people in the chat when we're doing them live,
Chat's over this side.
Yeah. But I have noticed that there have been a lot of views on these videos later. They've had, quite a few views. I think one of them, I can't remember, I'd have to go back and actually look at it, had, I think, over 200 views. I could be wrong.
Nice.
But the others, were well over 100 views, which to me, I think is good. It's showing that we're doing something that people are interested in.
Well, I've noticed another couple of YouTubers, because obviously because we've been doing these streams, that it'll show up in the little sidebar with the YouTube suggestions, and I've seen a bunch of people who have been reviewing episodes. Actually, some guys have been reviewing them for a while now, so that's like, all right. So obviously, people are interested in this show specifically. And then I think CK had alluded that maybe they're working on, if not the seasons, maybe a couple episodes, which I would think if you're going to redo them, you might as well do them all. But I mean, if they were going to just do a handful, or even if they did one, I mean, I don't know how would they would.
I'm just glad to see that this show.
The social doesn't tell them anything anymore, it seems. So, so a friend of mine has a stream, has a is it a podcast? I think they do a podcast with Felcher's one of the main guys on there.
Felcher's not telling anybody anything. I don't think. He's not telling the Dead Pit Boys. He's not telling anybody, because I've seen where people have commented under certain things, and Felcher's kind of like, well, I was going to say something, but now I'm not saying anything.
Well, I think some of the companies too, they're trying to keep stuff under their hat more.
I think so, yeah.
It may just be a whole just selling. I was going to say scam, but I mean, I still haven't got my Adrian Barbeau from Scream Factory, and it's really annoying that I still haven't gotten it.
Has it been shipped yet?
No, it hasn't even been mentioned to be shipped. Like they said, sometime this year. I mean, Well, were you following Garrett on getting his Trick or Treat Studio Chucky dolls and the Tiffany and all that? Like years, he was waiting for those to come out.
Crap.
I mean, it could have been a rights thing, but I figured that like with Adrienne Barbeau, they would have already had
right. Yeah.
That planned out ahead of time. That if it's a rights thing, or maybe they're just lazy, or I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, speaking of getting stuff in, I did finally get a shipping notice for my City of the Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell 4K. So I'm excited. Now Steve has already got his, damn him, but he ordered his or pre-ordered his before I did. And before somebody says anything, I know. Me and Steve are married. It's kind of like what's his is mine, what's mine is his type of thing. But I don't buy every single thing that he gets, but there are certain movies that I know, as crazy as it sounds, I have to have my own copy of the movie. Uh, I'm like that with the Phantasm movies. I'm like that with Friday the 13th. And some of these individual movies like City of the Living Dead. I've got to have my own copy. That's a movie that I've been a fan of for longer than me and Steve have been married. So, it's just one of those things. Wes always kind of tries to get my goat about that. He's like, why do you rebuy something that Steve has already bought? Can't you just watch his copy? Well, thank you, Texas.
Thanks,
I appreciate that. I think TJ's more entertaining than I am. Every one of my
You like to
co-hosts.
see me mumble and stumble. That's what.
No, I mean Kelly's been on with me. She's going to be on another Hitchcock stream with me,
Nice.
and I always think my co-host is more entertaining than I am. I think TJ's more entertaining. I think Kelly's more entertaining. I think Uncle Bill's more entertaining the few times he's been on here. Wes, just Texas when he was on here, audio only, which is fine with me. I thought all of
You
you
shall not be named.
but even Steve is more entertaining than I am. So.
Oh, stop. People tune into you.
I know I'm a little, I think I'm a little dry sometimes. Dirk, you say, just a heads up, there's a new comic book called The Nasty coming soon on April 3rd. I think check your local comic shops. It's about the video Nasty. Ooh, thanks, Dirk. I'm going to have to see if I can get my hands on that.
Darren would like that. I mean, what am I talking about? Never mind. Anyway.
I think several people would like
that,
I think. So, okay, on that note.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, or we're going to be talking and it's going to be.
That was my fault. It's okay.
No, it's okay. So, with all that being said, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. And TJ, you have a good night. Everybody in the chat, have a good night, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.